Hello, friends, and a very pleasant good evening to you wherever you may be. As Vin Scully used to say when he broadcast for the Dodgers, as he began every broadcast, I think he began it with "Hello, friends," as I do. I forget, must be copying him, I guess. But sometimes I say hi, friends. Regardless, hello, friends, and welcome to Talking with Famous People. Hello, Sheila W. Tonight, I'm going to take up somebody's suggestion from last time, 2 times ago when I had a live stream, that I ask questions and let people in the chat provide text answers and provide the sort of analysis that I normally would. Hello, Cocolette from France. Normally would in, say, a typing session. So I'm going to try to select some questions that I think are particularly conducive to different kinds of answers and answers that are conducive to explaining about cognitive functions. And once I decide on what question to ask here, I will type it into the chat so that it can be easily referenced by everybody in the chat. So I would say this. Imagine yourself, good evening, Zandy, welcome. Imagine yourself having been tasked to oversee a group of teenagers in the moving and restacking of a wood pile. Disagreements arise over how the matter ought to be done. Part 1, since I have this character limit, so I'll begin with that question there. Imagine yourself having been tasked to oversee a group of teenagers in the moving and restacking of a woodpile. Disagreements arise over how the matter ought to be done. Joey is trying to take charge of the group and insists his plan is best and most efficient. Julie says hers is most fun. Stan says his is most popular. Reggie says he would agree with Joey, but rejects his attempts to take over. Boss everyone around, we'll say. He just wants peace. Everyone happy. And Stu wants to make sure he doesn't exert too much energy. What do you do? So that's the question I'm beginning with here, is a type question. If anybody wants to type their answers into the chat, or what their first thought is, like, okay, well, what's my first approach? In this sense, the character limit might be a positive in terms of the effectiveness of of getting actual meaningful information from this. Before we begin this, let me just say a few qualifiers. I'm not actually typing anybody here. I'm just saying these are how I might address these kind of answers, these kind of questions. Obviously, I'm not able to read your tone. This is a text thing. It's very possible to game this. I'm not trying to say that your answer represents your actual self, and obviously I have a limited amount of data here. But I'm trying to walk through the equivalencies that I draw between certain kinds of answers and certain kinds of functions and why. So that's out there. If nobody wants to type in an answer to it, that's fine. We currently have 12 people in the room. Well, you should be able to see it even if you get here late, I think. So that's sort of an opening question. I've never actually asked that question of anybody before, which is typical of how I roll through things, right? I have a long history of recreating resources instead of reusing existing resources. Well, I used that resource before. I don't like it anymore because it's not new anymore. And so then I come up with something new. In this instance, but see, your job, Sheila, is to manage the group of people. And there's conflict amongst the people. You do this right now before I go to bed? Dangy, Eric. Sorry, TJ Music. I understand if the slumbering glories of Dreamland are too urgent a siren to ignore the call of. We're urgent sirens. Ooh, there were some urgent sirens out there on that rock. You have to go to work in 5 hours. That sucks. Hopefully you work at the sleep factory and you can just sleep there all day. That'd be very, very efficient. If I worked at the sleep factory, I just got up and there's too much content. Did I put a bunch of videos up? I don't remember. Unfortunately, I got a couple audio problems in the last 2 videos, which is very, very frustrating for me because I need to remember that shit. Well, I'd probably just start doing it and hoping they would join in. Okay. Do you think, Sheila, that if Joey, the bossy teen, comes to you and say, listen, I know best how to do this. Okay, lady? You may be older, but I'm the one who you should be deferring to here. Why don't you just put me in charge of the group? What would you say? TJ, you have a ENTJ. INTJ on Tuesdays. I get everybody but Reggie to follow Joey without too much actual resistance. So I said something like, let's try Joey's plan first. If it fails, Reggie gets the lead. That's a smart solution. Okay, so let's say everybody grumbles and they're like, okay, fine. They start doing it. And in a second, you hear a scream. And it turns out that, let's see, what are the names of the people again? That Stan's hurt himself. Stan's dropped a piece of wood on his foot. Now, as far as you can tell, it's just because of his clumsiness, but he's blaming Joey right now. See, Joey, I told you this was a bad plan, and I broke my toe. Okay, then what do you do? Reggie, of course, is taking advantage of the situation and going like, I told you guys this would happen. I told you. Look at Joey. You can see the guilt on his face. He knows it's his fault, too. He's trying to position it like that. But you know better. What do you do? Okay, CJ Music 24. I think you're probably something not what I said. I don't know what you are. I'll have to type you some other time. Joey's the lead right now, not me anymore. I let handle it. Joey, you deal with it. Okay, so Joey gets his chest all puffy. What, Reggie, you want to come at me? You going to come at me? Come at me, come at me. Like that. Do you step between them? He's misread your instructions. He's taken a form of leadership that you think you ought to dissuade. I get very excited about my ideas and then I just eat junk food and keep my ideas as fantasies and imagination and do nothing about them. Well, are you an INFP? Is that possible? Or are you a young ENTP? Welcome to young ENTP hood. That's possible. I was very much like that when I was 17, 18, 19. I felt a great sense of failure in myself for that. It dragged me to the bottom of the ocean. What's going on? A live stream. I'm live streaming. I'm getting people, if they want to tell me something about themselves and or answer the question up above with Joey and or talk me through, for example, if they do a musical art or any kind of creative activity like writing or painting or something, talk me through the creative process. I can tell you what I would glean from that. If you want to tell me about your way of approaching conflicts in your relationship, that might tell me something. If you talk about what your significant other either does or would do that you'd feel would make you most happy and why, that might tell me something. Making porn is a creative activity potentially, but it's probably more like a commercial activity or a in sexual gratification activity. I just tell the kids to follow my own plan. Do you have a plan, Cynthia? What's your plan with the woodpile? Everyone just pick up some wood and carry it over there, for Christ's sakes. I want to do my best to calm them down and restore harmony, reminding them that the quicker they solve it, the less intrusive I will be. That's very FE aware of you, Senjen. Could be 8th slot, could be 1st slot, could be 2nd slot. Cynthia suggests they just light the pile on fire. Cynthia, that's not going to get you a proper moved wood pile. It's just going to get you a big pile of ash. Okay? It's a bad idea. So yeah, it's Senjen. I mean, your answer right there suggests to me FE1 or 8 for some reason, but it could be 2. 8 would take a very practical approach to FE of the sort that you're saying here, but so might 1, so might 2. Here's another question I often ask, and I'll tell you what sort of answer I give depending on what sort of question, what sort of answer you go. I'll tell you what sort of interpretation I make of it. So the question is, how were you in high school? Tell me about it. Current creative project, create gazillion layered rough draft on Photoshop, requiring me to learn at first, which takes 3 months. Collect materials to begin actual project. Procrastinate by starting a completely different project. Takes 3 months. How clear is your vision about those projects going in? Do you know when you started exactly what you want to do, or do you just have a starting spot and you want to feel it as you go? Extremely clear. Okay, well, that sounds like high NI, low SE. Suppose the reason that is because you're talking about having a specific vision and having it clear enough that you realize the amount of effort and time and shit that it's going to take, and then you get overwhelmed by that notion. That seems like NISE, NIDOM SE, maybe NI2 SE3, but probably NI1 SE4. In high school, I was that guy who managed to get an A in philosophy without doing anything, was still considered cool by the cool guys. What other things, what elements of your behavior caused you to be perceived as cool? I had a few close friends and played hooky often. I protected and consoled the other children in high school. I then later died for all your sins. What type am I? Well, how do we know you died for all of our sins? Maybe you died because of them. Maybe you're actually responsible for them. How literally should we take that? Eric with a K, my name is with a C. Eric, then you can take on the typing of the eye by the eye movements and join all together typing eyes, voice, video, etc. I think what you should do is probably watch my most recent upload called Oh, it's Eric's real subtype. When I write fiction, I have a general plot line or theme that I want to explore. I fill in the blanks as I go, so everything is still consistent. How often does that general plot line or theme end up evolving quite a bit over the course of what you're doing, and how often does it stay consistent with it? In other words, how loyal are you to the plan? So the problem with asking this question in this format is when I ask you about your high school, I realize you're very unlikely to provide a specific example in text, given the character limit and just the nature of text being making things more metaphysical and less specific. So, Chen Jin, though, gave one sort of specific example. He got an A in philosophy, was still considered cool by the cool guys. I wanted him to give me an example of something, and we'll see how easy that is for him. I typed an ENTJ the other day, and I said, "Can you give me an example of how it is your what? Give me an example of your wife criticizing you about something, like what your wife criticizes you about." He couldn't think of any examples. That's how SI-polar he was. And when I suggested a couple of things, he's like, "Oh yeah, it's got like that. Yeah, she does criticize me about it like that." Weird, huh? I was an overachiever, always trying to get good grades and be part of the clubs, cooking, planning, committee, eco. I came across as a shy girl, but I really wasn't. Why did you want to be part of all those things? Was it to socialize, or was it to be perceived as successful, or was it to gain actual network advantaging, or what? What advice would you give to an INFP struggling to follow through? Well, I guess my number one advice would be the key to your following through is that in the process of following through, you're learning how to do something. You're unlikely to follow through on something when you're not learning how to do something, because your hidden agenda is TE. Oh, well, you're an INFP. Sorry, not an ENFP. Oh, because your 4 slot's TE. That's why. So basically, you need to narrow the scope of the projects to one, ideally, and at a time. And then additionally, seek the assistance of somebody who knows how to do the thing you're trying to do. Learn how to do it in the process, but don't worry so much about that because you're not an ENFP, you're an INFP. But just you'd be best served by somebody else providing you the how to complete your vision. If you do that, if you can successfully use your ignoring FE to elicit the help of other people, then you'll be much more successful. It's probably the best way to do is go through your FE. I won't lie, when I was an angry kid in high school, I bullied kids and later regretted it. I got good grades, but was very bored at school. Why did you bully them? Did you feel just a lack of compassion, or did you feel like you were getting back to the world for some wrongdoing done to you? Or I bullied on a couple of occasions too when I was a kid. I got bullied a fair amount too. Not a ton, but I was playing music and playing role-playing games, mostly with the 5, 6 same people. Okay. That sounds like, you sound like an INTP or something to me. Possibly an INTP, possibly an INFJ. The fact that you were seeking to restore harmony could mean anything. It doesn't necessarily mean FE higher than 4th. I'd say INFJ, INTP. In high school, I never struggled with the academic side of things. Was awkward and somewhat popular early on. Got frustrated, bored with school, and eventually dropped out, awkward and isolated by the end. You get frustrated and bored. Okay, well, probably an action type, possibly action tool function. That cuts you down to STPs or NTPs. I switched high school or NFPs or SFPs. Those are the 8 ones with action in them, 1 or 2. I switched high my junior year, and I was the new girl that people loved making rumors up about me. Really? That you loved asparagus? Everybody started calling you asparagus girl? Even though nobody had ever seen you eat asparagus, there's a rumor going around that when you went home, you gorged yourself on asparagus every day. And that's why your pee smelled like asparagus. Nobody ever smelled your pee, but the rumor got spread around. I have a race car with no muffler. All my neighbors want to kill me. I smoke pot daily. What type am I? ESFP? ESTP? Just guess. Remember, I've thrown the disclaimer here. What I'm trying to show you is just sort of instinctual links I might make to these sort of things, and or the process by which I try to analyze something. I don't think that these conclusions are very reliable based just on your text words here, which they're not. Not sure if this is true, but someone said C.S. Joseph is dating that Andy Andre girl claiming to be an INTJ, and he confirms she is. They're both crazy if it's true. That would be great. I hope that rumor is true. I tried hard at the beginning of high school, but lost motivation when I didn't see a point. I mean, that could be anybody. It depends how pointless you tend to. I mean, probably not an ESFJ who's NI polar, and so just going to ignore the pointlessness of it. I did well in creative classes, terrible at maths. I was sort of like me too, so that's not really particularly indicative of something, because I don't think necessarily ENTPs are going to do badly in math, but I did because I hated it. Besides that, I had two obsessions almost no one knew about: my environmental ethics and building my own fantasy world. INFP, INTP, probably one of those two. I want to start some projects, but getting lost in the details. I'm thinking of perfecting everything in this project. When I have a pen and paper, I don't write almost anything on it. Right. Well, that means you want to have it collapse into a whole before you begin executing it. You don't want to construct it by mushing it around. That suggests ignoring any, maybe countervalued any, possibly polar any, but I don't think so. ESTP and INFP should be together? I don't think so. That's a terrible idea. Why would you want your it's a terrible idea. Their respective polars? What a retarded notion. A friend of mine who's Asperger's thinks I may be too. I'm ENFP. Do you think that combo could be possible? No, I don't. Have you ever seen Better Call Saul? I've seen Breaking Bad. The main character is a great example of an ENTP, and there's some great conflict between him and his INTJ or maybe INTJ brother. They're both lawyers, sort of. Who, Saul's the ENTP? I would agree with that. He probably is. I think my motivation was just anger. They were weak people, and I feel like they deserved it because they could be strong and chose not to be. I had to be strong all my life, and I resented them. Okay, well, that could be anybody. Responding to damage always makes it more challenging to determine any sort of cognitive function link. In high school, I was one of the regular kids who minded my own business and hung with my friends without wanting to deal with drama. As a teen, the thing I loved doing the most was my speed stacking. Oh yeah, that's you. I forget. Okay, that's cool. I mean, you had a passion. You had a thing. Everybody's got to have a thing of some sort. School is a struggle because of homework. I always hold it off until the literal last second, and often more than not, I end up studying for exams on the day of during my other classes. Well, I mean, it really shouldn't require homework. It doesn't make any sense if you think about it. I can go to school for you to teach it to me in school. You're going to assign work in class. You got all this time that where I'm at your disposal. Why are you giving me shit to do when I'm not at your disposal, when I'm at home, at my own disposal? I've started doing architecture, and I left 5 minutes into my first lecture. I'm terrible at executing most things, but I still managed to get through reasonably well. I'm not sure how. I mean, that sounds kind of ENTP-ish. In high school, I was well known by everyone, but not popular. I did theater, but seemed preferred working behind the scenes on costumes, makeup. Got excellent grades because I played school well. How active were you in the FE department? Like, were you actively managing other people's perceptions of you and aware of how your behavior impacted their behavior to you? Sheila played fast pitch softball. you're a pitcher. I don't think that really means much of anything type-wise, except it does mean that you could probably strike me out. I'm in college, and I should be studying for a math test right now. Well, you are. You're studying for the math of the ether. That's what I'm sharing with you today. The math of the ether. In case you want to know, A plus B equals 7 has more than one answer. Okay. I would say that I'm fairly weird. I got bored one day while picking up my new schedule and pretended to speak to somebody on the phone about random theories on space and universal theories and shit. Is that because you wanted to display that to other people? That sounds kind of third slot FE-ish. I get really frustrated with typing myself intermittently, trying to convince myself that it's as woo-woo as astrology. I've gone into the functions, but I can't help but see that all of them in myself. Well, they are all in yourself. The real question is, what do you do when they conflict with each other? So I've got this one document called the Ordinals, Jeffrey, which I'll put the link to here. And it makes you rank things 1 through 8. So you have to understand how you choose when values conflict. It's easy to say, well, I value both justice and compassion or kindness. Okay, well, great. Well, what do you do if they directly conflict, as they sometimes do? Well, it depends on the circumstance. If you're going to tell me it depends on the circumstance a lot, when I ask a question like that, that's indicative of FI, high in the stack. Because you're saying, I can't really know what to do about this unless I have a personal interest linked to it. If instead I ask you a question about, like, well, what do they conflict, justice or kindness? What should we prefer? And you go, and you have a definitive answer, then that's going to say something. If it's one definitive answer, that's going to say something. If it's the other definitive answer, that's going to say something. But those are going to be less meaningful. What's more meaningful to take away from it is how definitive is the answer. Justice, okay, it's definitive, and that's the TI answer. But you know, an FI type might say that depending on how they understand justice. So that's not definitive, but the fact that the answer is definitive suggests not less against INFP. And it suggests in favor of TI. In high school, I was known as the guy who played bass guitar at school assemblies and games, but a lot of the football team respected me, never bullied. Well, congratulations. I don't like how INFJ think and see the world. Why not? Wasn't super popular, even though I am ESTP. Although if you say that you don't like how INFJ think and see the world, there's a decent chance. I guess if I were going to say, okay, well, who's most likely to think that? Possibly ISFJ, possibly
what do I think?
ISTJ, possibly who else might think that? Like,
think what?
That they don't like how INFJs think. I'm saying which types might not like INFJs. Well, for example, ESTJs or
ISFJs.
I know. I'm talking about the SI is the thing that's going to conflict with the NI in that instance. So SITE is going to just not agree with them. Okay. So, okay, we're good. We got a lot of commentary here.
That's what live streaming is for.
Right. And just a reminder, if you'd like to have a full actual typing session with me, it's $100 for 75 minutes. You can PayPal me at paypal.me/TWFP, or you can email me at suicide.gmail@gmail.com. Can't really put suicide.gmail for some reason. Okay. Regardless, it's not as woo-woo as astrology because these things do conflict. And because certain modalities of justification, for example, conflict more directly with each other than do others, there's certain mechanics to the thing that is definitionally necessary. It's not something that is like randomly assigned to a link that makes no sense, like astrology, where it says, here's a random number, your birth date, and now here's a bunch of random information about you that supposedly links to that birth date and time, but without any explanation of the mechanics of why and how the birth date and time would impact your personality.
That's when the stars align. Duh.
Right, but what do the stars do to make that happen, right? There's nothing. There's no explanation of the warrant to it. The mechanism by which it accomplishes purported.
Have you ever looked it up?
Linkage. I mean, what could it possibly be?
Well, have you ever looked it up?
What's the linkage? Why do the stars? Okay, I'll Google it. Why do the stars? Why does star position determine personality in astrology? Let's see what it says on the internet. So Google tells me it didn't say why. It all just makes a bunch of claims. Let's see. Okay, well, this says science confirms astrology. Psychology Today. Not really. A declaration up front. I don't believe in astrology, not even a little bit, but I like to apply my skepticism evenly. And there's one thing we astrology doubters like to say sticks in my craw. Only an idiot would believe the month you were born in could have any effect on your personality. Add me to the list of idiots. It all started with schizophrenia. Some scientists noticed that schizophrenics were more likely than others to have February birthdays. Also, January and March. Not a huge effect, but statistically significant nonetheless. And schizophrenia definitely affects personality. And then scientists found the same for bipolar. Winter and early spring birthdays have it worse. They noticed that incidence of these diseases were particularly low for people born in late summer and early fall. Suicidality appears to be strongest for April through June birthdays. Dyslexia may be strongest in the summer babies. The first thing these scientists did is the same thing you or I would. They looked at the southern hemisphere. They quickly found that these effects are reversed there. Since the seasons are reversed below the equator, it seems like weather has something to do with it. But what? So many things vary with the season. Disease levels, temperature, seasonal affective disorder, diet, activity level, many organisms, pollen in the air, school attendance, consequent disease exposure. Schizotypal is also correlated with month of birth. Maybe there's something to the old joke. I don't believe in astrology, but then I wouldn't. I'm a Gemini, so I'm skeptical. So I don't know. There's no reason to explain why it would do any of those things, but I guess it does to some extent or not. Okay, let's move forward. I'll try to go faster now. I like pineapple on pizza. What does this reveal about my deepest psychological habits? You were Hawaiian in your former life. I might be an ISFJ, but I might be too awkward to have auxiliary FE. Well, okay.
When you sneeze.
Tim, what I did instead was be polite to people in headphones and mute the mic.
Now wipe off your screen.
There's nothing on my screen.
There's a green booger.
There's not any such thing, Kimberly. You're just making that up. I'm trying to do well in school to prove that it's bullshit. How does that prove it's bullshit? I sat in class and just doodled on tests and homework. I did terrible in school. I spaced out every day in class. They grade me. I didn't speak much at all, and men thought I was weird, but girls like me. Could be ISFP, could be INFP. Hard to say. I never really studied. I've always gotten good grades without it. Didn't even study for the SAT, PA, college. I know what the SAT is. And gotten into the college I wanted with the major I wanted. You got into Vassar and women's studies? Wow. That is an accomplishment, 100 Mile Media. And now you've got a doctorate in women's studies? Amazing. I dressed as a rockabilly and wore cat eyeliner and red lipstick every day because it's easier to look exaggeratedly cool than actually make connections with other teenagers. ESFJ? ENFJ? Peter Wiggett. In high school, I was known as the guy who played bass guitar. I read that one already. I simply want to stand out from others and be a slice of bacon for other great weird people. A slice of bacon. A beacon, Eric, a beacon. Come on now. That's enough of that. Okay, well, you do that. I don't know what that means. It's hard to interpret people's motivations, self-reported motivations like that. Jumping from a project to another because I don't want to fit in the normal system and I don't see it to the end or think it's not fulfilling. Yeah, you got to pick smaller projects maybe. That's, action types tend to be like that, or action polar types. I get really frustrated typing myself. That's read that one already. I simply just want to stand out for my island, be a beacon. That's type 4 Enneagram, sure. Hulk Hogan, I had an advantage of having very cute teachers. I was taking female teachers' butts and became very friendly with them. I think I had a chance to bang one of them. And you regret it ever since. You didn't take advantage of it, huh? I had my own car and I gave everyone rides because I had a hard time saying no. My rule was never let anyone smoke in my car and stick to my guns. Okay, so you have boundaries and were able to enforce them. You had a hard time saying no, or you liked being helpful. It's kind of a difference, right? Because I actually gave people rides all over the place because I just enjoyed the socializing, basically. I feel it's a war between me and INFP. Who's winning? Where did I find that? I'm like, oh, I forgot to put it. Sorry. Ordinals. Home screen is temporarily unavailable. Why? Okay, there it is. Ordinals are here. Piao and Piao. Now you're gonna have to ignore the numbers that are already entered in there. I didn't just the numbers last time I did this with somebody probably, so it probably has numbers in it. Maybe it doesn't though. I'm not sure. The guy might have actually sent me he did. He sent me a doc, so he probably did a separate copy of it. So okay, Google Docs takes a little bit of time too. There we go. Copy link and put it in here. This is the ordinals, as they're known, which is an assessment that's still self-reporting, but that is attempts to mitigate some of the negative aspects of self-reporting by requiring people to put the things in conflict with each other rather than simply say, like, I score a 5 on this, I score a 0 on this. Sinjin, I can never answer this justice mercy question easily. I want both. In practice, mercy wins, even when it shouldn't. Well, yeah, okay. I mean, I would agree that that mercy often serves justice. When it doesn't, however, it has to be negated. Russian guy types as INTP or INFP. That you in the picture, Zandy? No, it's me. I'm in Zandy's picture. Hey there, do you smoke? Mike Jones. That would be mayhem. To take a person's penis, ignite it on fire, and inhale the fumes. Well, that would comprise, I guess, maiming, which is technically legally mayhem. Do you want me to be guilty of mayhem? Plus, why would I do that? Does it get you high? I like how INFJ organized, but I think that they can't see reality exactly. Well, astrology is bullshit. I agree, Dylan Har. Matthew, says Zandy. Zandy, says Matthew. Yes, I would guess you are INTP going back and forth between the two, but that's just a guess. Yeah, it's hard to render much more than that when dealing with the chat, that's for sure. When I listen to music, ideas for stories and movies comes to my head out of nowhere. I'm working on a script right now, and I didn't know what to do with something. Then I listened to music, and it came, is it any? Well, when you wait and then it comes, that's NI. But that happens to extroverted intuitors. It happens to introverted intuitors as well. The question is, what do you do much more frequently than the other? Because I've had plenty of occasions where I need to sleep on something, and then the next day I understand what I need to do with it. That's normal behavior for an NE Dom. If you're like that, then maybe more NE. If you're typically always in a state of sort of waiting for things to collapse, then it's more of an NI Dom. Astrology is true. The season your parents have sex determines their personality. Their personality determines yours. So when my parents had sex for the first time, that's when they got their personalities? What did they do before then? Were they just robots? But is there any understanding of the biochemical reactions that govern supposed cognitive functions? Consciousness itself is poorly understood, to my knowledge. It's similar in that sense, isn't it? I would say that to understand the cognitive functions, you have to understand that there's a locality suppression event in brains. That when a certain area of the brain lights up, the certain other areas light down, as though they were drawing power from those areas, but not literally. That's not literally what's happening, but I'm just sort of giving a metaphor here to explain what happens. What does literally happen is this suppression thing. In other words, the lighting up of some areas necessitates the powering down of others because there's a limited amount of brain energy to be directed in that fashion. So cognitive functions is built on that reality, that attentional focus is always it's always an embrace of one potentiality and a negation of others because of the way the brains work, right? Brains work that way because I don't know why, but the point is there is that quality to them. So cognitive functions attempts to map those suppressive relationships, mutually suppressive relationships, without using the empirics, just based on what we can understand definitionally and logically about what we can infer from that, and also what we can deduce from our simple shared realities of knowing that I can't both have this conversation and write a book with this hand over here because I can't maintain two narrative streams concurrently, only one. There's it's a hard limit, right? So when we accept that attentional manners are fundamentally different from each other because of either what they're doing as a function, namely, are they putting information? Are they creating impacts? Are they taking advantage of opportunities? Are they acting, in other words, taking action? Are they instead deliberating? Because people both do take action, having already made a decision. They decide, and they also have a period of time called deliberation where they're undecided. Those things are indisputable. Those are facts about the world. We can't dispute it. And what we can do, though, is try to understand the mechanics of how those related kinds of being play out. And if you do it successfully, it's logically defensible, the whole thing from the ground up. Now, I'd point out that here's a great example of something to remember. There's lots of good cause to be skeptical and lots of good cause to withhold judgment, perhaps, about the matter, and or to remain unconvinced that the basic premise has been adequately established to justify the build that's happening on top of that basic premise. I would argue that yes, it has been adequately established in lots of different ways that these attentional manners do have a relationship to each other that causes them to be qualitatively rather than quantitatively different from each other. See what I'm saying? Okay. Note to self, Starbucks makes a great hideout base when playing hooky, if it can even be called that. Eric, yes, Khalid Baghdadi. Most of my family is born in February. That explains a lot. August is for Chads. Is that? Do you have a website for typing people? I use Appear.in in my more private room, and I will have a 75-minute conversation face-to-face and ask you questions, figure out what exactly you're looking to get out of the session, try to make sure you get as much out of it as you can, some sort of sense of guidance or whatever you're seeking from, and I'll try to fulfill that as best I can. And yeah, I use Appear.in, and so far I think everybody's been pretty happy with the expenditure. Do you think I took the bootleg version of the Enneagram and I scored a 2 and 9? What was the one that you asked me the other time in chat? I don't. Oh, that's at Matthew. Do you think specific types tend to enjoy watching your live chats more than others? Well, I mean, I think that to the extent that I'm like, one can look at it from a couple different ways. There's, again, it's a qualitative, quantitative thing. There's there's a qualitative element that's going to limit your audience to a certain niche. Because I'm doing what I'm doing and not something else, I'm probably not going to get teenage girls wanting to learn how to apply makeup watching this feed, right? They're just not going to find what they're looking for. So I'm going to get people who obviously are interested in the topic. So that's going to limit the niche of people down right there. How many people are actually interested in cognitive functions and this level of abstract analysis of the psychology of the human being? Mostly intuitives, but not exclusively. So
I find it to be kind of boring.
Kim finds it kind of boring. But I've had the experience also. I would say if you had asked me would I enjoy participating in an equivalency for somebody else, I would have said no. But I find I actually do enjoy participating in other people's live streams. I like being in the chat. It's a weirdly unique experience that is kind of social and kind of fun and kind of the doc I posted was just the ordinals. Somebody wanted me to post a link to that. And then I was going to get next this explanation of the risks and why one has to be cautious about making conclusions about cognitive functions because of what I would call the 12-egg dilemma. And so I will share this document as well, a 12-egg dilemma. It's currently called Untitled Video, I believe. Untitled document, I mean. Yeah, it is called that. But I think this probably explains better than any other analogy. After I share the link, I'll kind of go over it briefly. But I think it explains better than any other analogy the challenge that we face with cognitive functions and the risk. The risk of running astray if we don't understand going in what the possible approaches are and why we're choosing this one or that one. So, come on. The 12-egg dilemma. Okay. So, I'm going to get a shareable link by pushing get shareable link. I'm going to push copy link. And I'm going to put this one into the old chatteroo here. Okay. This one has a picture in it too. Well, let me see where I am. Yesterday, I watched the video where you got typed. I just wanted to say I absolutely adore you. You're so graceful and sweet. That's at Sheila. She is very graceful and sweet, isn't she? I'm an INFP and must be blind to form. Finished a 3-year degree, but understanding how to write an organized and useful essay completely eludes me. It's hurting my ability to get a job. Well, I mean, if you're an INFP, you should be able to just sort of get that down. I would say it's all a matter of argumentation. So you can always organize things like a debate case, which is to say you just focus on what's the purported resolution you're trying to address, what's the question you're trying to address, form it in a statement that you can argue about, like resolved in the United States, healthcare ought to be provided by the federal government. And then you have blocks of arguments. So you figure out what your framework is. How should we determine the question ultimately? That's your framework. You go, well, we should determine it by what's most just. Okay, fine. And then you come up with your blocks of arguments showing why this is most just. Maybe you have a block of argument called inherency, which shows why we need a change from the status quo. Maybe you have a block of arguments called solvency, which shows why your plan here to give every health insurance by the federal government is going to solve problems and make things better and yada, yada, yada. So you block your arguments off like that by purpose, and then you just write it out, you know? Jonah Dempsey, yeah, I'm definite on N, but it's the TF that gets me stuck in the rut. What's your type? What's your butt? I self-identify as INTJ, but Eric thinks I'm an ENFJ. Yeah, I do, or an INFJ. I think getting stuck between lead TI or lead FI is more indicative of lead TI, but I don't have a strong rationale for this, just a pattern I've noticed. I've noticed it can go either way. The FI DOMs tend to stay, well, they tend to have a broader range of consideration of things that they might be, and they tend to go to vacillate for a longer period of time. But INTPs with their ultra questioning TI will find any little inconsistency with them being a TI user and exploit that to cast doubt on whether or not they're actually a TI user. It's their own, if you're doing that shit because you want to make sure you're objective and not biased and shit, there's a better chance you're a TI user. Let's see. Actually, speech pathology major, having that job provides something of value to society, unlike women's studies. Well, yes, it does. Unlike women's studies, how else are we going to learn about vaginas? I like to talk to people, but hate to be in the spotlight. I have 2 thumbs and enjoy getting high. Who am I? Let's see. Martha Stewart. I used to write down a bunch of superheroes in a book when I was little so that it would help my imagination of the superheroes when I read their names. Huh. Interesting. That's odd. Did you feel, was it important for you to collect them in that book, or was it just, did you then lose that piece of paper and started again on the next piece of paper the next day? I want to help people see life more clearly. What makes you think they're not seeing it clearly enough as it is? I don't know if there was more to the stories, Andy. Oh, there was. There was. Or the 6 games of basketball she didn't tell you about. That's too sweet. You just made my day. Oh, Zandy. You did it. Hi, I like long walks on the beach. I ponder life. I wonder about the future. What is my type? You're a Gemini, mate. Being type 4 doesn't automatically make you a liberal. No, that's true. I think you said you were INFJ once. You sound like one based on that short description. Well, I think she's I don't know. Looks like I woke up just in time. 1:22 a.m. for me. Well, good. I'm glad you woke up just in time. I often type as INTP, but I'm not sure I really have TI or FI. I'm pretty sure I have NE, though. Well, reach into your dampness and fondle the dew of your tender moisture and find out. I want to help people see life more clear. Then I leave them continue their journey on their own. I don't want to help them all the way through. What type? ENFP? I mean, ENFJ? Red and purple Skittles are my fave. ESTJ. Sex robot. Ooh, never mind. ENTJ. Hi, Eric. What is the Google Doc you just posted? Oh, it's a bag of boo. Oh, boo. I don't know. Click it and see. It's the 12-egg dilemma, I believe. Do you think specific types tend to enjoy watching your live chat? I already read that. Jonah Dempsey, Eric's video up on YouTube? Yeah, it is. The one that Jonah Dempsey did? Yes. As for typing the host, I suspect Eric is an ENTP. It's definitely not because he self-types as that. Okay, good. I'm glad you didn't consider that. Do you think bots could ever accurately type people in the future using algorithms, etc.? Possibly. They'd have to calculate the entire stack of shit. I think it'd be pretty easy to type me if you were a bot, because I have plenty of data for them to process. But a lot of introverts don't provide that kind of ample data for things to process. I was going to come in here and debate Eric on him over editing that video, but then I remembered he's a debate coach. Whatever, people liked it. I mean, I don't think I over-edited it. I thought it was still boring after I edited it. It was slow. Who doesn't need a good female anatomy teacher? A woman? I lost a superhero book and I was a sad boy. Oh. I am in theater and like to dress up in bizarre, dramatic outfits. I am outgoing, but also like being alone. I like going on road trips, driving cross country while listening to music in my car. Well, that sounds like some SE. Sounds like some FI, maybe. That's an interesting way to look at it. Imagine a Black Mirror scenario where there's a chip implanted into your brain that can show you which regions are most active as well as your type. That'd be nice. Why is he saying... Oh. Anthony, did you use the F word? I believe we've talked about that before. That's not allowed. That's wicked. It means you're a sinner. I took all these tests and tested as INTJ, INFJ, ENTP, ENFP, INTP, ESTP. What type are you? Somebody in need of my typing services. $100 for 75 minutes. Zandy, send me a YouTube message so I can stop ruining the chat. There are no more YouTube messages. You got to be Facebook friends with her. I don't have the TE to know how to send one. There are no more. That's why you don't know how. 2 TE pollers. Dun, 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 dun. Lindsey Jones, Hinch hunch sense, hinch sense tells me you're an ENFJ. Hinch sense. NI versus any approach to music. NI versus any approach to music is any, digs around the soup until something that comes out turns out to be something you want to eat. And first they dig out a lot of random shit maybe you don't want to eat. Or maybe, I'm not saying you should, look, I just put the ordinals up there for people to reference. I used to have the instructions of how to interpret it on there, but I don't anymore. So it's, each of the ordinal sheets is listed in the order of ENTP functions. So it goes NE, TI, FE, SI, NI, TE, FI, SE. If I had to type this host Eric guy, I would say he's ESTJ for sure. That'd be a good guess. How would you tell if you're FI polar? Well, I mean, you'd have to just consistently check yourself. So if you're constantly saying shit and then going, okay, well, not constantly saying shit, but often saying shit and correcting and checking all the time. So every time you say something, you're reflecting back upon what you said in terms of, if I were a third party who was looking to critique this, could I find something wrong about it? Then you're a TI tool user, and that means you're an FI dom. I mean, FI polar, sorry, FI polar. Is FI really into self-help stuff all the time? A lot of times. Look, you can see INFPs out there that make these videos about the pain self and the joy self, and that they have these emotions, they tuck them each inside a different self inside of themselves, and that's the kind of FI understanding of what it means to understand the self, is to compartmentalize the very definition resistant morass of
gaiety.
Yeah, feelings inside of them. Is it lucky? How do you figure TE dom? Are you watching this live stream? No, he's just joking. He's trolling. Don't fall victim to his trolleries. Government would use it to recruit people for their militaries. Would use what? Now that we have popcorn, Anatolia seems so small. What does that mean? What if you do reflect on what you said and what others may think, but only like a day or two after you said it? Well, then you just don't have, you're not that much FESI. I'm constantly reevaluating what I say as I'm about to say it. What does that say about my TI? It depends how you're reevaluating, on what metric you're reevaluating it. ESFJ big problems? How many bodies of your victims are you keeping in your basement? Kimberly's brother is staying in our basement at the moment, so there's one body down there, but it's fully alive, I assure you, and not victimized. He's enjoying our hospitality. Why are you trying to show off that you have more bodies in your basement than other people? I'm sure even if you only have one, you'd win that fight. Kimberly just walked out, Sheila. She gets frustrated with my live stream. She says they're very boring. And yeah. You should, the video, Paulanoia. It's an ESFP Enneagram 5 talking about depression. Do you think that ESFP Enneagram 5 is depressed? What is the NE approach to cooking? Just throw some shit in a pan and, ooh, maybe throw out some peanut butter in there too. That'll be interesting. I don't like this, Eric. What did you put in here? Peanut butter. Why would you put peanut butter in stir-fried salmon? I don't know. Make it Thai food? It's not how you make things Thai food, Eric. You don't just toss some peanut butter on something and say, there, it's Thai food now. An FI polar write a timeless song that stores your moistness? Yes, they can. I have some very moist music. The thing is, I don't use my FI consciously or willfully, but when I'm feeling strongly, it can very much inspire me to try to create about that, try to get it out, like get rid of it, to just some sort of drying process to excise the moisture as best I can. So, for example, I'll show you a very, very moist video right now. I'm going to show it to you. So moist. What's it called? There. Not the first time. Is this it? No, it's the other one. Goodbye. Let's see. Yeah, you guys want to see some wet, damp, dewy, damp, wet, tender moisture. You're going to see it right here. It's going to jerk your tears, make you spill your beers, and be accused of giving leers to all of the women. People with high functioning autism have better FE than those with low autism. I was diagnosed with high functioning autism at 3. I don't know if it affects my type or not. You're not autistic. That's ridiculous. People with high functioning autism have better FE than low functioning autism. Yes, but it's still not like you are at all. You're not on the autism Asperger's. I'm well versed in the field. I had plenty of autistic and Asperger's students, and I know what they're like. What are the types that ENTPs can get along with best, and what are the types they can't get along with? We have a lot of trouble getting along with ENFPs and ESFPs because they have polar TI, and we get very frustrated by people who won't allow us to successfully engage with the world by our tool function. Everybody does. Police hat on. I'm off the job right now, but I'm still wearing the hat because otherwise my bald head will blind you with glaring light shine. Cold of moistness. We've been called that before. Cold of dew. The dewy damp ones. The dewy damper experience. Grief put me in wanderlust mode. Substance abuse and weird sex with weird people can happen. It sounds like an INTP. According to one theory, you get along best with ISFP, ESFJ, and other ENTPs. I think you get along well with ENTPs, fine. INTPs, fine. ESFJs, ISFJs. Quadramates, you get along with well. INFJs, we get along with well. Those are the best ones we get along with. And maybe ISTJs toss in there as well. In response to nothing is real, you said something interesting about people being front stacked, 1, 2, 3, 4, and back stacked. Do you remember what you meant? Well, I'm just saying that I was talking about Frank James's presumption that everybody is fake because his tool functions FE, so he assumes that all of everyone else's displays are also constructed keeping in mind that social efficacy metric. And my point being, of course, if you've got FE on the back stack, that means it's on 5, 6, 7, or 8, then you're not consciously attending to those metrics at all, or, to a minor degree. Eric, have you ever heard of Smiths? Of course. What kind of singer would the lead singer Morrissey be? Morrissey is probably an INFP or something. Like, oh, let me get what I want. God knows it will be the first time. I mean, what a whiny guy. Why do you say you definitely have high functioning autism? You're not on the autism spectrum either, Matthew. I'm reevaluating to make sure what I'm saying makes sense. Well, but against what metric does it make sense? Does it make sense because it's a good logical way to do things? Does it make sense because it's argumentationally defensive? Does it make sense because it resonates with your experience? Does it make sense because it resonates with what you know is true about the world? Does it make sense because it resonates with your personal interest? You're not giving me any answers. I was diagnosed with PDD nose because don't have all the symptoms of autism. The only one I don't have is the social problems. I do have sensory problems, preservative thinking, etc. Well, I have my opinions about it. I don't want to go into the whole autism thing. People have their opinions about it, and I believe I know better, but whatever, I don't care. Cuando pienso que mi vida, how can I think about my life as a pork rind, seeing this type of life and saying my life is a marzipan goose? Is that what that says? I think so. Which types do you most struggle to identify? Nowadays, I don't really have a lot of trouble identifying any particular type. I feel like I got it down pretty good. But I used to have a bit of trouble with INFJs. Sometimes I still can. I might think they're ENTPs. I might think they're INTPs. They can be challenging. INFPs can be challenging because they can have a lot of different displays. My personal theory is that people develop disorders in accordance to MBTI. Any Downs with ADHD. But not all NE Downs are ADHD. The case being when one's functions begin to go into overdrive. I think all NE Downs are ADHD. Can't work for more than 1 month max. What type is he? Lazy? You should make a song for each type. I probably should. I've seen Morrissey live. He knows how to work a crowd. Does he? He's... interesting fellow. I mean, I remember back when he was with the Smiths, people always said he was abstinent, which is the way they used to say gay, I guess. Is there something you'd like to try? Is there something you'd like to try? Ask me, I won't say no. How could I? It's interesting in that lyric, right? He's not taking any action. He's asking the other person to do all the action taking. Okay, so let's see. Now I've got a little bit more chatty chats to discuss. Let me see. Oh. Well, let's see. Okay, those are your results, huh? So that would suggest third one. Where's the fourth one? Right there. It would suggest, I mean, it's pretty haphazard mix, but I would go INFP probably. Possibly an INFJ. I mean, I use those as a starting point. I don't think they're very reliable for typing people. I don't think that you should take the ordinals and go, okay, well, this will tell me what type I am. It's just a starting point for me. I often use them to talk through some of the questions, like, why did you answer this one this way? Explain to me what your thinking is. And that can be very informative. So it's not in itself a reliable instrument of determining type, and I don't use it as such. What type is most likely to hoard books from libraries and recheck all of them down just before the due date? Probably like an ISTJ maybe, or an ISFJ. It's probably an SI dom. I knew Erica was a genius. That Spanish is on point. Thanks, Zandy. Don't worry, I'm not offended by alternative opinions on autism. I agree a good amount of them, but it's okay if you don't want to get into it. That's fine. Cool. Wow. Finally caught you, host Eric. Glad you did, Johan Anino. Is Eminem an INFP? No, Eminem's an ENTP. I was diagnosed, dude. What? I mean, what the fuck do doctors know? Why are you so reliant? Why do you put so much faith into a doctor's diagnosis of something that has no physical, empirical test that they can give you? There's no blood test that goes, yeah, well, you got this protein. That means you're autistic. It's just someone's opinion about whether you match up with some poorly defined symptoms. What types are most likely to work more so they don't have time to be moist? ENTJs. High-functioning autism is much more different than low-functioning autism. Well, I mean, that's assuming you accept the premise that they're trying to sell you, which I don't. When the chat ends, we must give a feedback from 0 to 10. How the experience went. What do you think, Eric? I think you should give a grade like that. So I know, like, okay, well, I got a 7. That's passing. C minus. I can do better, obviously. Let's see. Eric analyzing Morrissey. I love Metallica. I wonder what James Hetfield is. He's a heavy metal god. ISTJ Clocker there. Kimberly put that up, so I guess it's ISFJ. It seems like if a person is socially awkward and detail-oriented, people immediately diagnose them with autistic Asperger's. I mean, I don't know what the diagnosis habits are, but I would say by what justifications do you offer this diagnosis? And all it is because, well, you share this vaguely defined trait and bullshit. I'm still undergoing diagnosis for ASD. What's ASD? I have several symptoms of HF, autism, and ADHD both, with the exception of the social difficulties and sensory meltdowns. So what that means, I don't know. I'm an ENFP. I wouldn't be too attracted to those kind of disordery things. I don't think they're really meaningful. It's just really talking about, well, you skew heavy on this angle this much, and that's why we call you ADHD. It just means you're an action type. Do certain cultures have different personality type percentages? I have no idea. Maybe. Usually logical experience, but it's hard to say. I have a very visual or gut feeling way of processing information. Okay, well, it could be NI, could be lower NI, maybe 3. I don't know. Diagnosis has changed in DSM-5. No more high-functioning autism. Now what? Yes, there you go. Types most and least concerned with status symbols. Usually going to be your ENFJs, possibly your ESFJs. Most concerned, least concerned. ISFPs, INFPs. Eric usually types INFJ, INFP, but I've never been able to truly come to a conclusion on the type because I have a complex trauma, so it seems my functions have swelled. No one has been able to explain. I mean, I'd have to talk to you. It sounds, that makes things a little bit more challenging. I feel INFJ is slower than ENTP in terms of speech. INFJ is slower than ENTP in terms of speech. You gotta, it depends on what, see, ENTPs are tricky. ENTPs may come in displaying one of any number of variety of self that ENTPs tend to manifest. There's a very quiet version of me that doesn't really have a lot to say. And it really depends on things unrelated to what I'm doing, you know. Sometimes I just caught, like the other day I was super quiet all day. Why? Well, because I was thinking out the cognitive function rummy game. And it was so occupying my thoughts that I couldn't, like, I didn't respond to people when they talked to me. And it was taking all my TI, every bit of TI energy I could throw at it. And my TI is not ultimately that strong. Like, it's not strong like a TI DOMS. So let's see. I love your INFP discussion. I'd love to know more about how I can improve my TE. I'm planning to open a food business. Someone I think is an ESTJ and an INFP and more TE can help. I mean, my basic thoughts on that are the way to improve your TE is, number one, decide what it is you're trying to get accomplished as clearly as you can. And then number two, seek somebody else to provide you that map of how to get from point A to point B. Because there's a benefit to being fourth slotted. You don't feel any like embarrassment or whatever in getting help in that. Some people might be really embarrassed if the people knew that their wife like dressed them and told them to take a bath and stuff like that. I don't give a fuck. She does that, and I'm grateful she does that, and that's how I want it. And I don't feel like I should be embarrassed by that at all. But somebody else might be embarrassed by that. Somebody else might be embarrassed by needing help figuring out how to do something. But you're not going to be embarrassed by that. So take advantage of that reality, and utilize the people who want to give you the TE. If you really are going to business with an ESTJ, you got somebody there who's going to want to tell you how to do shit all the time. And it's just going to be a matter of you. You have to, though, control the NI reality, which is ESTJs are NI polar. That means they don't know which thing that they're teaching you how to do is most important. And so you're going to have to manage that aspect of things yourself. And that means putting aside your FI a little bit and prioritizing the countervalued NI sometimes more. Go with what's more true rather than what you feel. And because you're FI Dom, if you're an INFP, that's a good sign because you got TI Ace. You can use that to check things. Make sure you check things with it and utilize it when it matters, not when it doesn't matter. INFPs have a habit of using TI when it doesn't matter. There's a guy, an artist, who builds human-sized birdhouses for a living. What type is most likely to find that really attractive and want to have sex with the guy inside of one of his birdhouses? Cynthia, that little fetish of yours is yours and yours alone. Nothing to do with type. It's just your unique little thing. You just want to have sex with a man dressed as a bird in a human-sized birdhouse high above the city streets. Nobody has been able to explain it. Not me nor any of the dozens of psychologists you went to try to cure you of this. I flip whatever ain't tied down upside down. Well, what if it was upside down to begin with? Then do you flip it back right side up? Which type would you say is most prone to not giving up until something is done? ESFP, or can't stop thinking of a problem until they fix it? That one's more complicated. But I'd say ESFP is the most determined and persistent and stubborn and unwilling to hear any logic to tell them that their path is stupid. Honestly, I think having the autism label is very restrictive. I went to the dentist. The dentist started telling me how I must be good at math. It's ridiculous. Yeah, well, who does like people treating them like a member of a group rather than an individual? It's ridiculous. Actually, as a self-identified NEDOM, I do have this way of starting things from end to beginning, reading things backwards. Interesting. You think it could be NI thirds lot? I think it's possible. Very possible I'm an ISXP. Possible. Did your quiet TI laser beam parsing give you a glimpse into the INT life? Well, I'm basically almost identical to an INTP because I don't know if you guys heard, but I'm double TI. That means I'm like, pew, 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 my TI. Illogical, logical. Like that. Just people just pow, pow, falling all up against the walls and everything. Yeah. I'd be embarrassed if my wife didn't breastfeed me on at least on occasion, and word got out that she didn't. I would be embarrassed too. I'd be like, I'd also be dead from lack of nutrition. I need her precious, precious imaginary breast milk. Once my husband scolded me in public and I freaked out on him. Kimberly does that too. The past is never dead. It is not even past. Really? I'm pretty sure it is. My kid was given a genetic test for some marker for autism. Not exactly sure what that could have been. It showed nothing, so no official reason for his quirky goofballness, except that he's a little, I know, an ENTP guy who sits back in the room and stares around silently, but he goes out and does a lot of things with people also. He gets into arguments, and I have to save him from fights. It sounds young. What MBTI are furries? You mean those people who dress up as animals and stuff? Probably NI tool. Look, it's intuitives who want to do that stupid shit because we think that sex should be all about the symbols and archetypes of human sexual behavior, not the actual thing itself. How can I contact USJSVI, Ganesh? It's okay to ask this here. I don't know. There are no accurate DNA tests for autism and ADHD currently because they're not specific diseases. They're bundles of related things that people call disorders. I freak out on my husband if he grabs the steering wheel when I'm driving. That makes sense, Joey Jojo Shabadoo. That's a good way to crash. Probably leaning more towards NESI axis, not trying to point any fingers here. Point them at your NESI axis. It doesn't mind. NI is often strong in INTP. Yeah, they are double knowers. Speaking of double, When I say that, I don't mean there's a subtype called double knower. I'm saying they kind of have this double knowing thing because the aspect of their 6-slot counter value is the same as their dominant, and the third slot hidden agenda SI is the other knowing function. So that's why I'm saying they kind of like have a happier relationship with their knowing functions than somebody who doesn't have that impact, doesn't have that quality to their cognitive function stack. Totally different kind of double there. I'm a quintuple FI animal cracker ESTJ subtype. I'm literally crying all the time. It makes it hard to delegate. I bet. You're one of those kind of ESTJs that acts just like an INFP. Joey, I have to drive. My husband's driving stresses me out. I think I'll end up laughing if I come to the conclusion I'm an ISFP, and that's the very first type I got on any MBTI test. Well, there you go. TI is like a supercomputer. Intuition is like supercomputers networked. Hey, Rupert Bar Best Creations. Eric, unfortunately, the ENTP guy I know is 40 years old. Oh, he's an alcoholic. Yeah, lots of us fall victim to that. That's too bad. He'll either quit or die. I understand what you mean about the disorders not holding too much weight, Eric. Ooh, it's why I say some do and some don't have X condition, as some are misdiagnosed just due to trace functions. What were they talking about, Franco? What? Tell me. Ostriches? What do you make of an INFJ who tested higher in SI than SE? What do you make of that? I make of that probably, if it's true that they're an INFJ and tested that way, that the test was doing a bunch of self-reporting shit and it wasn't constructed with any attempts to mitigate the naturally counter to correctness ways of that approach. Let's see. But in regards to daily functioning, I seem to have zero issues with myself. I lean to that I do have something and my daily function is affected. Well, I mean, who's not affected in their daily functioning by some unpleasantly difficult aspect of self? Everybody is. Do TI users get angry when people help them figure something out? I don't. I often will ask other TI users who have better TI than me to, like, I can't figure this out. I talk to INTPs. When things get hard, I go, INTPs, can you explain this to me? Not because I couldn't figure it out, but because it takes so much effort. I get tired of applying my TI too much. Like thinking about that car game. That was some hard TI lifting for me. Trying to keep all that shit in my head. That does sound third slot TI, possibly. Could be fifth. But it now sounds more like third. Whether or not you're accurate about being bad at it is another question. It depends what you're comparing against. I want to start loving the past for SI development. No, just start with this present and go, what's my body feeling right now? Should I move my legs around? Should I sit differently? Let me check my posture. Do that kind of shit. I don't even remember correctly. Loving it gonna be hard for me. What is meow? I don't know what is meow. Just someone? Oh yeah, that seems right. I've never said that before. I've never heard that before. But that makes sense. Being bad at math and philosophy, or at least not particularly good at it, but enjoying it and finding it relaxing and gratifying, that would be third slot TI, I guess. Just like being not particularly good at the FE things, but wanting to be all performance-y, right? I mean, drawn to performancing in front of people because you really want the FE, whether you're actually successful getting it at first or not. Later on, as you get older, you get better at it, A man with definite belief. Answer here. I can't write your name. Who's a man with definite belief? Was Pablo Picasso the painter in SP? I have no idea. Never heard him speak or anything. Is regressing into a habit or pattern third slot SI? Not necessarily. I mean, everybody has habits and patterns. The question is, remember the SI is a conscious, when it's used consciously, it's a conscious attentional manner. So why is it that Kimberly reminds me of the same thing 5 times a day? Because she doesn't stop thinking about this matter that she's got in her head as a matter of concern until it's resolved. She doesn't forget about shit, because she's repeating it to herself. She's saying over and over again to herself about the same words, about the same topic, or the same words over and over again. So she's got plenty of time spent with the thing to drill it into her head. Symptoms from ADHD and autism run in families. Well, sure. But frankly, what all that really tells us is that people with closer genetic relatives are going to be similar to each other. So it's true possibly that there might be a family where ENTPs are more common in the family than they are in the general population. That's going to mean that ADHD is also more common in the family than the general population, but not because ADHD links to some genetic thing that's distinct from the function stack. It's just because there are more ENTPs in that family than usual. That type I think is ISTJ. They're calm and balanced. They are calm and balanced and helpful, and their FI is good. I like their FI. They get genuine satisfaction from liking you and finding you important and significant to them and being nice and stuff. It's cool. Well, having an SJ enemy would be terrible then, right? They would remember every little thing you did wrong with them. Yeah, they do. Well, any MBTI test I meant, out of all the times I took the test, whether it was on 16 personalities or Humetrics, and the ISP was my first result. Okay. ENTP ISTJ friends. Yeah, I've got an ISTJ friend who's good, friend of mine. And we never have any conflict, right? Because I'm seeking SI, he's seeking NE. He's TE on TI. There's not anything for us to really fight about because I just defer to him on TE. Unlike ESTJ, who I find too overbearing, I'm happy to let ISTJ have their superior dominion and just sort of follow what they say, because I'll typically ask them, like, okay, well, how do you think we should do this? And then go with that. Whereas ESTJs will insist on telling me how I should do it, and then I'll be like, well, fuck you then. If you're going to tell me how to do it, I don't want to do it that way. Me and my father sometimes argue in circles, regurgitating the same things as it are SI, since it is usually about something that happened in the past or his first slot TI crashing with my FI. It'll be circular if somebody is avoiding the TI for one reason or another. So my ex-wife used to be very circular, and her argumentation with me would go in circles, and she keeps shifting ground. Somebody's shifting ground. If you go in circles and stuff, it means somebody's shifting ground. If I say to Kimberly, I didn't like how you talked to me at dinner, and she goes, well, I didn't like how you talked to me at dinner the other night, then she's shifting ground, because we have to address those things one at a time. And you'll forever go in circles if one person is allowed to shift ground. You address the thing being spoken about directly, or else you'll never get anywhere. I did get INTJ and INTP as well as ISTP, though. Well, then just think about it. Obviously, you're either not taking very good tests, or you're not answering them consistently, or you don't know, or any number of possible things. That is so stupid. My kid is a mirror of his quirky goofball father. No DNA test needed. They chew their food with the same movements. So there you go. I mean, there are genetic similarities, obviously. ENTP, ENFP, a lot of laughs. Well, it's true. ENTPs and ENFPs have a lot of laughs together and can be great for a short period of time. But as soon as there's a conflict between them, they're gonna want to tear each other's eyes out. My brother constantly notices SI things in his life and uses TE to make them more SI, so I'm pretty sure he's an ISTJ. Sounds like it. Zachary, I thought I seemed like an ISTJ when you guys typed me. Host Zachary? He said a couple other crazy things like that. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I wouldn't put any weight in that at all. Yeah, I heard him say a couple of whack job notions, but it displayed how little he understood cognitive functions. Is it usual for ESTJ to correct your words because you didn't use the most accurate formation, even though they're TE? No, it's not. You need to be ESFJ friends. We're activity partners. I've got ESFJ friends. It's just that we don't tend to really have a great connection. We do stuff together. Other people's metal albums are around. Other people's metal albums, I would say, then you're probably ESTJ or ISTJ. Your own metal albums, you're probably INTJ. Just a guess. Does anybody remember Demon Windu? Yeah, I remember Demon Windu, of course. Demon Windu still comments all the time, or fairly often. Shabadi. Well, that's the reason you shouldn't pay for the DNA testing at this point. I'm sorry, how much sleep do you get in a day? Last night I got 6.5 hours or 7 hours. I went to bed at 2. I got up at 8:30, 6.5 hours, which is not enough. I need more than that, but it's close to enough. So, the reason I'm able to stay up so late in general is largely because I get up late in the morning too. I go through a period of time when I sleep a lot during sleepy week, during Adderall time. Sometimes I'll stay up a whole night and the next day and then go to sleep the next night. I never stay up 2 nights anymore. I used to, but not anymore. And I never, during a cycle, I never stay up a full night more than 1 night or maybe 2. Not back to back, but maybe 2 over the course of it. And I really make an effort to try to catch up. I'm pretty attentive to that, like much more so than I used to be anyway. I've learned to respect my SI needs. Getting older makes it kind of mandatory in a way. Encounters with him leave you really wondering whether he's a troll or a legit jackass. Who, Demon Windu? He's both, I think. He's a troll, and he's also got a chip on his shoulder. But he says some smart things, too. I've had him nail it on a few occasions with certain things in his comments and be like, whoa, that's informative. That's insightful. I don't seem to have any deep friends that want to talk abstract. So frustrating. Well, you have your deep friends here on the internet, Sheila. You've got Khalid Baghdadi. You've got Hambone. They're deep. Just Someone. I'm medium deep. Joey Jojo Shabadoo is deeper than shallow, but shallower than deep. Franco, it was run on a blood draw for something else and it was free. Not buying into the autism type. It's rampant in the current elementary age range, and I'm over. It's ridiculous. Another question. Do you think some cultures tend to encourage this specific type? Like in the West, TE is very praised, while in our culture, Asia, FE, or society is very prioritized. I mean, I agree that Asian cultures tend to be much more FE heavy. It's a communitarian individualist thing. And I really think it's that kind of distinction there, but it does tend to reward people of certain types if they're if you're talking about a communitarian culture, is going to reward people who are more FE because it's always going to be about, well, how does this validate with the group? Whereas individualist cultures are going to reward more FI. Like, I mean, you might say America rewards TE and its just general sort of affirmation of that which is effective, but it's just as rewarding of TI. And what's really not rewarded is FI. FE is rewarded, but the FE here is subsumed by the individualism, whereas whereas the TI is subsumed by the communitarianism in the East. What do you think of Eric's painting in the back? Where is it? There it is. Yeah. I was gonna... Hello, you ugly thing. Do you want some language curses? You're talking to me? Am I the ugly thing? No, thank you. If you didn't pay, I guess it's fine. EEG gives better information. I surround my sensors everywhere I go. Sensors everywhere I go. Am I afraid of heights? No. I am more likely to be afraid of open spaces. When I was a kid, I used to think I had agoraphobia. I really don't like being out in the wide open where there's nothing around. Type my brother. He's very religious, preachy. He also has a history of violence and intimidation. He's nice to be, but many people are intimidated by him. He's outgoing but distrustful of people. ESCP? Do you think it's different personalities were segregated in different plots of land that wouldn't survive? Some types would survive better than others. I mean, like, if you get your SE polar types, they have more of a need for others to help them fulfill their needs, probably, than do other types. However, on the other hand, need is itself a pressing master. You know, if you got to put a handle on the shit or your family's starving, then you'll probably find the SE somewhere. Right, but the difference is Jeff Barnes. I want to read Jeff Barnes' comment and explain what the implicit mistake in that equivalency is. So Jeff Barnes says, I think different people view the 16 types at different layers. So you may be analyzing types of the fundamental structure of TI, but CS Joseph focuses on the archetypal nature, NI. Well, there's a problem with you. We're talking about a model that in order to be legitimized has to be deconstructible. In other words, you have to be able to logically parse it out reduce it into its component pieces and check to see if they actually fit together consistently. So the problem with NI truths is they're holes that are non-reducible. So you can't actually substantiate them with introverted thinking. And since there's no empirics, we can't substantiate them with extroverted thinking, which means there's no check or balance upon the ideation that's built off of that wrong premise. And as a consequence, C.S. Joseph has flown way up into fucking left field as to what shit means. He's got no idea anymore. He's got no tether. There's no tether with no TI and no empirics. Thanks to the comment, Eric. Deep people, what types they fall in? Deep people? I mean, anybody could be deep. It just depends on what you consider depth or of significance to be worthy of depth. Like some things that you're super... If I were super into plumbing supplies and the different kind of plumbing supplies and how this was a better brand of wrench than that is a better brand of wrench, you probably wouldn't call me deep, even though my knowledge of plumbing supplies would be very deep. So most people think about people who are deep as, I don't know, insightful about existence or something like that. Might be, really in touch with their feelings, or the definition varies. You're severe agoraphobic housebound condition. Well, you better get out and go dancing. You're a good dancer. There's more to life than cucumber. It's a pretty bold claim. I'll go out on a limb and agree with you, though. There is more to life than cucumber. I want to get more in depth with MBTI, like the play or consume part. What's the play or consume part? You're talking about objective personality shit. That stuff's all garbage. See this? Okay, first, look at the 12-egg dilemma. I'm going to go over the 12-egg dilemma right now. It needs to be gone over. It's ridiculous that people keep talking about this shit, but it's like Ask me questions about it. Well, I'll tell you about it right now. This is exam. Oh, this is a PG Christian life. Okay, all right. My bad. My bad. Did I curse? I didn't mean to curse. That's terrible of me. All right. So if we look at this document here, it says a 12-egg dilemma. And what you see here is the tricky thing about cognitive functions. Introduction. People have noticed that human individuals behave differently from one another probably since the beginning of time. But for almost as long, people have noted repetition. Joe is a lot like Bob. In fact, Joe, Bob, and Steve are all a lot alike, while Mary and Frank and Judy are also all a lot alike and very unlike Joe, Bob, and Steve. We can explain these similarities and differences in a lot of ways. First, we might simply dismiss the apparent sets as imposing a qualitative distinction upon a quantitative difference. Let's look at eggs as an example. Imagine I'm visiting your farm for the first time with no foreknowledge of your livestock. I knock and hear you shout, "Go on in," from around back, so I walk into the kitchen. Next, you stride into the kitchen through the back door carrying 6 large eggs and 6 small eggs in from the hen house and set them on the table in front of me. And there's this graphic here. And you see the 6 large eggs and 6 small eggs. And it says 2 groups of chickens, incidental grouping, 2 different generations of chicken, 2 different breeds of chicken, big and little chickens. There are different ways to interpret these 2 sets of eggs here, 6 sets of eggs. So A, I might conclude that the egg difference indicated 2 different chicken varieties and deduced from the eggs that there are 2 different types of chicken in the hen house. And this might be correct. There may be 2 breeds. One lays large eggs, the other lays small eggs. I might conclude there are 2 generations of chickens in the hen house. The older generation being bigger, lay bigger eggs, and the younger generation being just starting laying eggs, produce smaller eggs. And I might be correct. I might conclude there are 2 sizes of chickens in the hen house. So,
not the first wife with whom.
There are 2 sizes of chickens in the hen house. If that's the case, then the flocks are all the same age chicken, the same breed of chicken, but there's just some bigger ones and some smaller ones. And the big ones lay bigger eggs and smaller ones lay smaller eggs. That could explain the sets. Or I might even conclude the 2 sets are incidental. It just so happens that in the normal range of egg sizes among a group of same breed, same age, same size chickens, half of the eggs happen to land in the smaller than normal range and half in the larger than normal range on this given day. And that also might be right. If so, the apparent patterns are just red herrings. They represent nothing more than the statistical spread, and all pattern takeaway is a function of the level of zoom, not indicative of anything real in the system. So this eggs analogy explains to you what if you're going to do work on cognitive functions, you better understand that reality first if you're going to get it right. If you're going to do any ideational work on it, you better understand the reality of the 12 eggs there. And with those 2 sets of eggs, we can conclude all sorts of different things, right? With chicken eggs, it's easy to tell what the actual correct answer is because we can go outside and look at the chickens. Oh, look, they are all the same size. They are all the same breed. They appear to be the same age. I guess it's just random. Or, oh, there are 6 red chickens here and 6 silkies. Yeah, I mean, I've been answering, like somebody goes, well, if I'm like this, then what do you think that means? And I'll tell them what I think it means. I asked a couple questions early on that you can go back up and reference if you wanted to. Right now we're talking about the 12 eggs, the mystery of the 12 eggs. I'll put the link here again. Let's see how much I've missed a lot of chat, it looks like. Sheila W. Is that your excuse for being a stripper? Claustrophobia? I have to take it out quick or else I'm afraid I'm going to get stuck inside of it and I'll freak out. I'm not a stripper by choice. I mean, by choice, sure, but it's a perfect job for me because of my claustrophobia, you see. Clothes make me feel extremely claustrophobic. I got to just take those things off, throw them on the men in the audience, and just start whirling around this pole to get the anxiety out of me. I'm out all. It was delightful. It was delightful. Joey, Shabadi, thank you for being here. Some of his analysis of the behaviors of certain types gets you the real essence of that type, in your opinion. But why is that your opinion? Why do you think his analysis is significantly worth your attention in that instance? Are you presuming the things he's basing the analysis off of, or are you logically validating any of it? Does it just resonate with your experience, or does it resonate with your sense of singular truth that's non-reducible, or does it logically actually check out? I would think having too many of the same type in one location would be boring and maybe even bad for them, because we need variety in our lives or we'll go insane. I would tend to agree with that. I'm happy here too. I need my daily fix. Eric Fix. Bye, Joey. Bye, Joey. I'm severe agoraphobic. I read that thing already, I think. I did. Matthew and asparagus. Shh. Oh, right. Wow, you are streaming. Smiley face. Thank you for smiling, Walter. I appreciate you didn't give me the frowny face. That would have been sad. I tried SSRI, but I never want to take any again. Yeah, you don't take any of those kind of prescription pills. Just take yourself some weed, a little bit of narrative, seizing the narrative. Okay, I think it's somewhat difficult for INTJs to see that they're idealistically speculated what a planet with only INTJs would be like, how superior it would be. It would be so great. Everyone would know what they're doing all the time. They know how to do everything, and they approach everything with how to do everything, and then that'd be great. I should never believe everything in the net. Well, I'm relatively new subscriber, and thanks for clarifying. Sure. You can dispute my opinion about it all you want, and I encourage people to do so and make the arguments, but I have yet to hear any good ones. I don't think that I've met many INTPs and INTJs in real life. Could you tell me their fundamental differences in behavior in contrast to INFJs? I would appreciate that, as I think I'm an INFJ. INFJs are aware of how their language, their speaking, and their interaction in general with other people impact that other person's perception of the INFJ. And so they've got a good understanding of what's going to motivate people to behave in this way or that way, or why people do things. And they typically collapse those understandings into singular wholes. INTPs are like me, except quiet. And INTJs are, well, they're also very quiet. They're not focusing, instead of the INFJs focusing on social impacts of things and perceptions of other people, the INTJ is focusing on probably how the perceptions of other people get in the way of their singular understanding of how things ought to be done instead, for efficiency purposes or efficacy or outcomes. I always hated my family compared to me and my siblings. I don't know what the majority type of my family unit is, but man, they compare and compare and compare. They do it all the time. It's terrible. It's probably it's hard to say whether it's a type thing or not. It's just bad behavior. People in families should speak to each other kindly and lovingly. Maybe I don't have agoraphobia when you put it that way. I have a different notion of it. Thought it meant you were afraid of the physical world generally. So no, I don't know. I actually just don't like super wide open spaces. It makes me feel like there's nothing to hold on to or something. I get lost in the bigness of space or something. Are you still driving people? I already said that. Chicken egg size matters. Chicken egg size matters. Well, I'm behind now. Chicken egg size matters how much protein they eat. Okay, so that could be another thing. Maybe they're high protein consuming chickens and low protein consuming chickens. There are variants of it. Some people are okay in certain locations. FBI, open up. Come on in. I'm a bad egg. Well, let's throw you away then. Invest it in the stocks. Okay. Just pick them at random. ENTP are searching for the perfect system to work best, efficient, and fast, but God has sent for us the perfect system for every personality who wants to bear the eager towards the Creator. Well, I mean, look, I'm a deist as well. I use prayer and faith as a behavior that I engage in periodically and feel as though it bolsters my overall being in a number of different ways. But I don't feel the need to tell other people that, really, except when it's contextually appropriate, like now. I'm not sure that was contextually appropriate, really. If I have sleep deprivation, you do. I become an Enneagram. What type am I? Well, you're an any dom then, because nobody changes their dominant function when they have sleep deprivation. Why are bantam chickens the best chickens? I don't know if they are. And if they are, I don't know why they are. Sorry, Zandy, I forgot Eric's Christian. I am Christian-ish. I mean, I'm Christian, but other people don't necessarily think I'm the right kind of Christian or something. Sometimes people don't like my understanding of Christianity, and they see it as invalid in some way. I've had people say to me, "You're not a real Christian," which I think is weird. The problem I see with DSP's research on type is he looks at the different behaviors in type and asks, "Oh my God, why is this happening?" If you want to understand, well, I mean, sure, right, like everything's got to be representative of a pattern. The mistake is it can be found and understood through the 12 egg dilemma. Cucumbers with hair for Christ. That's a very small club. A square egg. I love square eggs. Okay, so two notions that CSJ talks about that I think resonate true are as follows. Great to see you stream. Thank you, Streamer News. Great to see you streaming news about streaming, Streamer News. Type deceased punk rocker G.G. Allen. He was just an awful human being. I'm familiar with him, but he was an awful, awful human being. ESFP, maybe? People like Banties because they're small and make good backyard pets. Is that what red is? Are any types more likely to get paranoid, self-conscious, self-critical on weed? I mean, any type's likely if they almost never smoke it. If you smoke it all the time, it has a totally different effect on you. It's night and day. Thanks to 12 Eggs, host Eric Farmer suggests something, maybe a playlist for people new to MBTI like me. I find you a lot easier to understand than others since you go straight to the point. Well, I do have a bunch of playlists on my main channel that have like type police, debate police, stuff like that. If you're looking for by personality type, I have those as well. You just got to go to the playlist page. I've got a lot of playlists, so it could be a bit of a. If you use the search function for the channel, you can find what you're looking for. There's 4,300 videos, so it's not really possible or it's very difficult for me to successfully organize it where all that material is somehow easily accessible and easily found. They do have a good search function in YouTube that's channel search. So if you find the channel search, which is not the main search bar, but it's on the channel front page, that's a good way to find what you're looking for. Let's see. I wouldn't know enough about that. For me, I feel anxious outside of a base so I can go on holidays if I have to go somewhere to access home, but that traveling cell. Well, maybe you should just stop. It's like if you had some critically important shit to do, it would distract you from all that stuff. You'd probably experience life differently. I like the ones with fluffy feet. Who doesn't? Singular holes. I'm a one-hole man. Just got my pee hole. That's it. Poop, I just comes out my pores like sweat. And I know exactly what you mean about the feeling of being lost in the openness of space. It's an unpleasant feeling. I can't quite explain it. It defies my explanation. It feels like things grinding you together. Who's afraid of planets? I'm afraid of them if they're going to crash into my planet. I'm feeling lazy today. Can I stay home from work? Well, you just call in and say you had a miscarriage. I'm a compulsive eater. Would this point to SE or SI? SI, or if either SI. You don't talk much about ENFPs. Do ENFPs get along well with them? I like them a lot. I get along with them very well for a while, and then there's a point of conflict, and we go kaboom. Okay, about CHA. He claims the FI countervalued function makes IXFJs feel guilty often. And also he talks about the mirror effect, where INFJs take on the behavior and attitudes of others unconsciously. Except INFJs... Okay, so FI countervalued function makes ISFJs and INFJs feel guilty often. Why would FI6 make... I mean, why would FI6 make them feel guilty often? Explain that. So the equivalent would be like, I feel... Well, I mean, maybe. That makes sense. I'm not disputing that one. As far as the mirroring thing, they do that. And that's true. So what's the point about it? It's an observation about INFJs. I mean, look, I'm not saying none of his observations about various types are correct. But, you know, even the blind squirrel gets an occasional nut. The question is, how many of the nut-appearing things are real nuts and how many of them are rocks? Because if you want to say, let's evaluate this resource based on whether or not I can find some good piece of information or some accurate piece of information within this body of information, then any resource in the world would qualify. We can find something worthwhile in it. Who is imagining that Jupiter will come close to Earth and scare us? The Anti-Jupiter Commission? Is space real? Yeah, it's definitionally a consequence of objects, of distinction. It's definitionally implied by distinct objects. The fact that there are distinct objects means there is space. The distinction between objects is that they don't occupy the same space. So, if objects are real, space is real. The Joker would point to dopamine regulation issues. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, basically. I agree with that. Probably. Maybe serotonin. I don't know. You don't talk much about ENFPs. Yeah, I already answered that. Okay, about CS, I already answered that. Who imagines Jupiter? I already answered that. What type should you be? This imagination that our planets, what type should you be? You should be whatever you authentically are in the deepest center of your heart. They would be what they needed to be to express their messages and purpose to humans. But as spirit beings, I'd imagine they'd be beyond such simplistic understanding of types. Which spirit beings? Jesus and God? Oh, you're talking about Jesus and God. They're non-typal. I would agree with that. Probably Jesus is like the combo type of all the different types. I am that one EI S N F T P J. What type is scared of airplanes? Airplaneophobes. They would do it. I already read that. SI6 makes me regret stuff and blame myself for things past. That makes sense. I mean, so FI6 guilt, SI6 regret, TE6 be inefficient or feel inefficient or self-identify as inefficient, maybe. Theory would be irrelevant in metaphysics as it's just a software of the physical body. Why does that? No. Why does that make it irrelevant if that is the case? And why do you say it's just a software of the physical body when it's a description? A cognitive function is like a math function, right? A plus symbol or a minus symbol. It's saying the data exists. It's coming in through our senses, which is our link to the physical world. And the reality is all the metaphysical links have to link something in the physical domain for them to collapse into anything. Nothing ever exists. No meaning exists without some linkage to the physical plane, or else it wouldn't be understandable. And I think that, in fact, personality theory subsumes metaphysics because it necessarily asks the question, well, why is the individual writing this particular metaphysical theory doing it the way they are doing it? And it explains it as the particularist expression of these universal channels via which attention is potentially manifest, and those channels are finite, and they are encompassing of much of human existence, but not all. And they are encompassing of all the attentional dynamics in terms of the processes of paying attention. Seung Soo Kim, hi, kiss me. There's a little kiss for you, Seung Soo Kim. Okay. What type is worst at driving? Women, obviously. Asians, female Asians. Thank you, Franco. That's correct. Or old lady female Asians. That'd be the absolute worst. I think that INFP is a very good driver, but IN types, I see them a little bit too slow. Well, let me tell you, when I was an INFP Asian woman, because you know I'm transgender racial. Anyway, when I was a elderly Chinese woman, I could barely even steer the thing. I don't know what happened. It was crazy, but I did get karate in exchange. They say Jesus was ENFJ, but I agree he's not typable, although for his human side, I guess ENFJ is close. I mean, INFJ, maybe. ENTP, maybe. I mean, he's all of them. I think you're right about God and Jesus, but what about somebody like Muhammad who actually was a person? I mean, I would say Muhammad was probably ENFJ. Probably ENFJ. It has temporary usefulness, but ultimately is not important unless you believe souls would live only one life. Well, I don't know. Why do you have to have a decision about that in order to determine the importance of it? I mean, granted, it determines the temporariness of it. If you consider there'd be options of temporary as being one life or like perennial and being multiple lives. I mean, the completed whole of a single life is indisputably a completed whole. And any impacts one might have, as far as one knows and can measure and can determine exactly what the impacts are restricted to this life. So there's no meaning to be saying about like it's temporary unless everything's temporary because. Eric, you claim that one fundamental aspect of SI is being aware of bodily sensations. I would like to claim that in symmetric fashion, NI is in part about being aware of the sensations of the mind. Well, the thing is, the symmetry, the analog that I would say is the other side of SI being aware of bodily sensations is NI being aware of external timings. So NI is the thing that says, throw the spear now to the SENI user. It knows based on a multiplicity of factors out in the world that it collapses to a singular whole of when. That's a real-time manifestation of NI. And the distinction that needs to be drawn there, of course, if you want to understand it meaningfully, regardless of how you understand it, it has to be predicated on the fact that there's a real-time manifestation of it that happens right now, and there's an across-time manifestation of it that deals with symbols. For example, with SI, I can keep track of my objects when I'm not near them. When I'm not paying attention to them, I'm still keeping track of where they are. I've got a mental map of some sort in my head of where my computer is relative to the living room, for example. This is an SI maintenance of my, not just my physical self, but me and my stuff, that little package team called me and my stuff. So we know then that SI, we know that there are two distinct things to talk about here. One being the feeling in the moment of scratching your head and the satisfaction of the itch being scratched, for example, versus knowing where your objects are in the attic. Those are different things. So the question is then, if we're going to call them both SI, why do they manifest these two very different things here and be the same function? The answer is because we have to account for that distinction. We have to account for the distinction that there are real-time applications of an intentional manner and manifestations of an intentional manner that are not present in the moment. So being present in the moment in general is a sensory thing. Being present in the moment about the external world out there that's not me and my stuff, that's SE. Being present in the moment about my body and my stuff, that's SI. Like right now, I'm present in the moment with my body and my stuff. I got these things. I'm going to smoke it. I want to make sure I'm holding on to this. I'm not going to let go of it. In fact, it's overkill. I've got a lighter in my hand as well. This is also habitual. These things are real-time expressions of maintenance across time of objects and other feeling, sensation-y things about your body. So once you make the distinction between cross-time and real-time, then the answer becomes clear. Well, NI tells us when to act. It serves SE. SI says, here are personal links to your experience, your symbolized experiences from the past. Oh, this is like the time I met Bob. Bob was just like this guy. That's SI providing NE ideational possibilities. So it's not the case then that, because what you're talking about there, and you're an interesting person, by the way. I'm enjoying speaking with you a lot, Mr. Whoever you are, so much so that I'm way back there. Sensations of the mind. What does that mean? Do you know what that means? We know what a sensation of the body is like. I can talk about it by saying, scratch, scratch, scratch. And I can demonstrate it, and I can have you scratch an itch and feel the sensation yourself in real time. We can both agree that exists. Now, I'm asking, I might also say, here's an example of maintaining a relationship to your objects that exists across time. And I give an example of knowing where shit in your house is. What is a sensation? What is a mental sensation? A sensation of the mind. Because sensation, naturally, the word itself indicates sensory roots, not cerebral. But explain to me what a sensation of the mind is. Okay, religious topic. Abraham, Jesus, Muhammad are all messengers of God, peace be upon them. I mean, when you transcribed into a white ENTP male, did you keep your karate skill? No, I lost it. I'm not white male right now, though. I'm actually African American, or I was. Actually, I just changed. I was on, yesterday was the 28th of February, which was my last chance to do something for Black History Month. So I was African American. I told the traditional telling of the George Washington Carver story of the invention of the peanut butter and my people's, value to society. And, Black History Month is my favorite, outside of Neutral History Month, which is March, I believe, or Pick a Race History Month, which is April. That's all. I like Pick a Race Month. That's cool. When everybody gets to write about races all the time. Pretty soon, all of the whole year will be about race, and then we'll be satisfied. There's more than 12 races, so we're going to need more than 12 months. We should extend the year into a 24-month year. I imagine FE with N. They use TI to list facts to support their NI. I don't know who that's responsive to. Do you think ISFJ moms condition their kids to become ENTPs? I don't know. My mom was an ISFJ and I became an ENTP, but I think I sort of started life as one, so it's hard for me to say. Neo-paganism on the rise. What's neo-paganism? This life is temporary, but our soul will go even in hell, even in paradise after a judgment. Well, I don't really have a super strong opinion about the afterlife. God's never told me anything about the afterlife. When he does, I'll let you know. Teen son and I have been trying to type him for months. Current theory is ENTJ. He drives his INTP dad and INFP mom nuts, making NI conclusions when we're having any conversations. Oh, that sounds frustrating. Ooh, that sounds frustrating. What TE Dom stuff should be observable in a teen? I would say if he's an ENTJ, he's probably telling, you should see him reducing the particular, dismissing SI as meaningless, that your experiences don't matter because here's his NI truth. And it's probably that he's dismissing more than NE. NE, he's countervalued, but it's something he can work with a little bit. And whereas SI, he can get frustrated. If you go like, well, look, I know that the smart money is on choosing this contractor, but Judy's going to go with this other one because she has this personal experience with somebody who knows that contractor. She really likes them a lot. Give him some personal experience to him. He'd get frustrated. Why would anybody consider that even at all? Who cares about the person? They give you that sort of shit. You can sort of set up a scenario to see if he reacts with reflexive dismissal. Would flat Earth theory be a topic that can be debated, or would it be considered a redundant debate topic? I don't think it would be considered redundant. I just think it would be considered skewed. Like if you're going to say the Earth is flat as a topic, it would lose more often than it would win. You'd have to be a much better debater to win the round, and that's really kind of how you can measure slope. How much better of a debater do I have to be to win in this topic than the other guy? If it's no impact, then it's a well-balanced resolution. If it skews one way or the other, and I got the bad side, then I'll have to be that much better than them. It's kind of like horse racing. If a resolution skews 10% neg, then you've got to be not just better than the other person, but you've got to be 11% better than the other person to win. What astrological sign is Kim? August 8th, I think. Whatever that is. Everyone will be judged on their pursuit. Well, I try my best to be a good person. I may be, it may end up being that I'm judged in the afterlife, as you indicate, by monotheistic God. And if that happens, I believe I can say, well, I can feel the weight of all of my sins in some sense. Like, I know I'm imperfect. I know that I could do a better job of lots of things. I know that I excuse myself of certain things. I tend to think of those matters through my own attentional manners, and by those own criteria, I think I'm passing at least, and probably substantially less soiled with sin than a lot of people. So, but it depends how you measure those things a little bit. Some of them are self-evident and implicit to human existence, and some of them are more of an open question. What if Earth is hell? I've said before, I've posited before, the Earth is heaven. What would heaven be? You'd have a fresh start, free will, and an almost unlimited ability to decide to use it. But it wouldn't be effortless. There'd be some labor involved, so there'd be satisfaction. You'd have something precious that could give you a great sense of gratification. There has to be something you could lose, or else it would be like that episode of Twilight Zone. This is as close to heaven as I can think of. Now, granted, different people in different parts of the world with horrible situations. I wouldn't want to be a Syrian refugee, but even they are exercising their free will to pursue whatever preservation of self they can attain, and ideally, eventually, some movement forward. I think that the biggest risk of feeling very certain that we know what's happening after death is, number one, we don't have any way of checking. Like, nobody's ever actually been fully dead for a long time and then come back and said, hey, okay, look, this is what actually it's like. I've been dead now for 4 years, and the whole time I've been taking notes on heaven. Here's what it looks like. There you go. Nobody's ever said anything like that. Nobody's ever done that. Nobody's ever claimed even, I don't think, to have been dead long enough to do a thorough accounting of heaven. But there's no reason to believe any such story because they all conflict with each other, or to the extent they have similarities, there are similarities, and there are distinct differences as well. Certain other things might explain it, yada, 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 yada. The point is, I don't know what happens after death, and neither do you, and neither does anybody else. And even if we were to believe wholeheartedly in our religious texts that we hold dear, we still have just this very rough sketch of what this thing is like. It says certain words that promise certain things and leaves infinitely more matters about the issue undefined and unspecified and unanswered. So what do we really know about it? I mean, those words could be interpreted to mean lots of different things. So why do people feel certain about something that we have no access to information about, definitionally, is beyond me, but a lot of people do. And, like I said, I find faith to be an important part of my behavior and my expression of self, but I don't let it consume my ontology. In other words, while God comprises a negative constraint upon my behavior, first and foremost, not necessarily a positive indication of anything. So in other words, God tells me what I ought not do. And sometimes, if he's particularly generous, he may do nice things, apparently, from what I can tell. But it's hard to say for sure. It's not like he and I have conversations. I just, they're fairly one-directional, So it's important to remember that each person's own experience of faith is going to be interpreted by their own experience of faith. To the extent that we ascribe to group narratives regarding the nature of faith, it's always going to probably lead us astray. Or not always, but a lot of times going to lead us astray because we're ignoring the fact that faith is ultimately a behavior and not an affirmation, not a set of arguments we affirm. Well, okay, keep growing and learning till we all meet on the judgment day, that every human will be judged on their pursuit. If you don't want to learn all the lessons, you get sent back to Earth. Don't need worse punishment than that. I enjoy Earth. Yes, I was triggered early because some of the criticizing videos remind me of mean things I've done to people in the past. Oh, that's okay, and that's fine. I understand. I don't want to be mean either. It's a tricky line to cross, like I said. When you die, would you rather go to the afterlife or reincarnate? Reincarnate, probably. I can always do the afterlife later if it's an option, right? Whereas if Spoonley wants to take the afterlife, I can't reincarnate anymore. So it makes sense to take the reincarnation. Take a high dose of DMT and you can experience no time and no ego. Well, okay. Everybody keeps telling me that. Maybe I will take it at some point. God will judge you perfectly on that day. Well, but why do you... But, I mean... Okay, I guess. Why is that better than reincarnation as an explanation? I was assuming some shadow work thing. Nice, you deal with it. Take a high dosage of DMT, you got that, which is not describable. I try, I'm triggered by something else, and I'm not sure if I should be. I'm triggered by something else now. Oh, the religious thing? For the living, no, they will die, but the dead know nothing. Okay, yeah. So dead men tell no tales, in other words. Correct, Joker. If you believe in an only physical world, psychedelics is a way to challenge that belief. I don't believe in only a physical world. I mean, there's obviously two dimensions to existence, metaphysical and physical. Don't let such control you. You are the master of your being. He sounds odd, but it's true. Did I get typed at the beginning of this live stream? You're a zesty Zandy. That's what your type does. I typed you as a zesty Zandy, I believe. On the topic of afterlife, imagine how much it would suck if the paranoid schizophrenic have to deal with an eternity of that in heaven or hell. Bro, presumably, if you go to heaven, you get cured of that or something? I don't know. Maybe you get stuck in limbo. Ooh, schizophrenic, we're not sure if we want to let you in. I like how the scariest dreams are entertaining. That's the thing behind that observes. The thing that's behind that observes. I like that sentence right there. That thing that's behind that observes. Jeffrey, don't be afraid. You won't be judged wrong. I love nightmares. I don't like nightmares. Maybe going to the afterlife would free you of the issues your faulty brain gave you. So if you're bipolar, you get cured of it. Maybe. Well, that'd be a mental illness, of which would be cured since it's an effect of living in an imperfect state. How would fourth slot SE show during grief? You'd probably just go out and do a bunch of shit. Like, I'm not going to focus on this grief. I'm just going to go out and I'm going to go to work and then I'm going to lift these weights and then I'm going to ride my mountain bike and I'm going to exhaust myself and then go to, crash out. And it's like that. Doesn't believe in reincarnation defined as a form of mental illness? I don't think so. If so, it's defined by somebody with an extremely biased dislike of reincarnation. The soul is real. When a man dies, he doesn't move. That's true that when a man dies, he doesn't move. And I think the best argument for the soul is when life ends, the body ceases to have energy or electricity to make it go, so to speak. But energy can't be created or destroyed, right? So where does all that energy go? What is it? Hi, Jesus. Me and my father judge what's in people's hearts. Their actions are largely irrelevant. Keeps us among children. Okay, well, but don't forget, Jesus, that you might lead people astray there because if people think that good intentions are enough to justify their bad behavior, then they can cause massive harms. And basically, the sin then is pride in their own feelings. You will find out the second you die, Baghdadi. Yeah, I agree. He will die. He will find out. So will I. We'll both find out when we die. The rest of you guys will never find out, but Baghdadi and I are going to. How does SE blind spot manifest? Just a really difficult time following through on planned actions, completing things, slaying the puss, whatever. Logic tells me a massive amount of people are wrong. You think? I never found a story that's scary, but I find dark, morbid stuff fascinating. Everyone will die. This is our last chance. Our last chance to do what? Eat Doritos? Seems like an oddly constructed system for an omnipresent, perfect being. What does? Everybody dies and gets judged? To either go to heaven or hell? It seems like a naturally occurring inference from the reality of ethics without a deductively vigorous framework to account for affirmative ethics. One's required to presume a teleology to get any kind of affirmative ethics, and that teleology would have to be species creating in some regard. Talking about God without a clear book is the only way to meaningfully address the subject. What type is likely to say this seems at odds with logic? Probably TI Dom. Maybe a third slot. Probably not a TI user. Hell is only in two religions. Jews don't believe in hell. That's why they're all going to hell, Franco. That's one of the punishments for not believing in hell is you go to hell. Just so the irony really burns into your flesh for all eternity. Where do you fart? Where does that energy go? Into the air. The thing is, it's released, right? It's released in ways that are physically demonstrable. The energy is what's responsible for propelling it out. But there's no equivalent thing that we can point to for the energy of consciousness leaving the body. Where does it go? Because unlike a fart, it's not born of a physical energy that is directional in some regard. we can identify that the source of the gas that comes into you was from this metabolic process, yada, yada, yada. But what we don't know is what happens when the car stops running because one piece of the engine broke. Well, we know why it's no longer producing. Why the processes of it are no longer producing the energy it requires to go forward anymore, right? We can make the same argument with humans and say, oh, it's just that. There's, I need to generate this electricity for this thing to go. And that's what's the problem, is that it's a piece of it is broken and it's no longer being able to generate the thing that we think of as the being. So you could approach it that way and think about it like that. As the electricity is the process, so to speak, of being. But the problem with that idea is I don't know. It's a complicated issue. I give up on it. It's too challenging to try to solve with TI entirely. You just got to accept some things on faith sometimes. There's a correlation between NT types and the autistic spectrum. Just saying. No, well, you may be just saying that, but that correlation is not accurate. If there is a correlation between the NT types and the autistic spectrum, it is between NTJs only and not between NTPs, because as I've said already in this live stream, I'm very, very familiar with the population of autistic and Asperger's students. I worked with them for the LA County for 8 years, and I've met many of them, and they all share certain things in common. And those things are distinct from the things that NTPs share in common with each other. In fact, they're exclusive of those things. So, and some of those things. So if you're going to see autism and Asperger's as a single spectrum and or a single disorder that is an actual singular thing as opposed to like ADHD, which I tend to agree it is, well, then we'd have to exclude from that calculus NTPs for sure. You don't have to agree with me, but I'm correct about this. That all I got was a free burger for a store. Must have been a delicious burger. Energy transcends depending on how you, the observer, and it interacted. That's true. I mean, we can explain somewhat of the dissipation of energy, I suppose, but I still nevertheless say identity is a unique kind of object, I guess. The left-hand path sounds more fun. Catholics believe in purgatory. What type is likely to say that this seems at odds with logic? I answered that already. Talking about God without a clear book, I'm way behind that. Whoa. I love all the different viewpoints on religion and consciousness. Me too. Is there usually heaven? Hell yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is heaven sometimes. I think that. Eastern religions don't have hell, only a few billion people. Do people at SI Tool generally enjoy storytelling? My dad does, for sure. Yeah, I'd say for sure. Both my ex-wife, ESFJ, and my dad, ESTJ, do. I don't think existence is simple as good versus evil. It's just an archetype. Well, it's not as simple as. It's not only good versus evil, but certainly there's a moral component to existence. ENTP? No, I'm an INFP. And that I called it, I knew you were an INFP. I felt supervised. Khaled Baghdadi is an ENTP. Let's see how your intuition works. If I am an ESTJ, what my type is? ESTJ? INTP. INTPs are awesome. One of my fave types, dualities everywhere, yin, yang, etc. How does NI 6 slot manifest? Depends if it's INFP or INTP. I have a video on it. I should link to you. I think INTP thinks too much for me. This lines up with Genesis, to death to return, so hell equals disintegration, not eternal suffering. Don't believe in hell either. Jesus called it Gehenna, which was a dump in Israel where rubbish was burned to ash. Can inanimate objects have souls? If not, would that mean there is no furniture in heaven? It's spirit furniture. It is not made of soul material. Well, it's made of a very similar material. It's a synthetic. It's kind of like synthetic motor oil is what they put in the furniture gaskets of heaven, and it forms into that. It's basically just as good as if they had souls. It works just well. Floats, and it's made out of clouds. Okay. Well, surprised here. She's not even worried about getting to heaven either. I'm not particularly worried either. I've bribed some of the archangels already. No, they cannot. They are a part of you. Your experiences, in a sense, they are your soul. I cannot explain this well at all. Good night, everyone. Good night, Zandy. Pleasure chatting with you. Appreciate it. Appreciate your being here, sharing your wisdom of truth and joy, love, and belief. I believe in an impersonal, immanent supreme being. Gods are too anthropomorphic for me. Well, if you can't anthropomorphize your God, then you can't ban, I don't know, what rhymes with anthropomorphic? That's a hard one. We don't really know what a soul is or how to define it. It definitely can't be proved empirically, so you're left with your free will and the judging of it. Right. I mean, we believe in a form of living forever, just not in heaven, with the exception of a select few for a specific purpose, but the rest have a different eternal earthly hope. If we don't know, ask people that know. Who knows? Khalid, who knows? 144,000 go to heaven, right? And like a harvest. It's just random. Like, it's basically the lottery. Hopefully I'm gonna win. Again, I bribed archangels. What are your thoughts about entertainment media like Japanese animation, Mexican soap operas, or American superhero craze? I like Japanese animation. I like Naruto a lot. I like a little sexy anime porn occasionally. To act as judges and kings alongside Christ. Am I going to be stopped from that since I talk about anime porn? Is he going to bust my chops? Is he going to slap me if I make jokes about facial cum shots and stuff? What makes you think there is a moral component? Because there obviously is. I mean, we all have both an implicit empathy response that suggests it's built into the species in some regard, and we have a logical calculus that says I can't expect others to treat me how I want to be treated unless I treat them with the same sort of approach. Rights can be derived from the simple fact that people have to answer certain questions. Who owns your body? If they choose to not answer it at all, well, then fine. Then they just aren't engaged in the issue at all. But if they do answer it, then most of all negative rights and negative ethics is deducible in a long chain from that. And it's a sound chain. It's just you got to remember that these arguments always occur as an argument, never in a vacuum. And we tend to talk about the arguments as though they persist outside of any actual discourse about those that employs those arguments, but that's never the case. It's just a metaphor we use of sorts. So now you saw the comments and subjects from us. Type us. Well, Colette, you're an ENTP. That's what you said anyway. So I'm going to type you as an ENTP because that's what you said you were. And I'm going to type Joel Nathan Henry as somebody who rests his case way too soon. First of all, you have no reason to believe that Tesla, Einstein, Musk, Gates, Rembrandt, Van Gogh, Da Vinci, and most savants, all NT types. Tesla's an INTJ, sure, I agree with that. Einstein, possibly INTP. Musk, probably ENTJ. Gates, INTJ. Rembrandt, what makes you think Rembrandt's an NT? Van Gogh, what makes you think Van Gogh's an NT? Da Vinci, ENTP probably. So what's your case you're trying to make? I could put a list of great people in history who weren't NTs as well. I'm interested to know with whom I planned this life of everyone I have met. I'll know you, Annetta. You'll be my supervisor. You'll be the person put in charge of stopping me from making mean jokes. I don't NI is in part necessarily by paying attention to sensations of the mind, more like when I am activating my NI, there are differentiated sensations in my mind. Okay. Do you understand the difference between what I did and what you did? When I talked about real-time SI and gave you an example of what that would be like that we can all identify with. Everybody can go, yes, I know what that is. And then when I talked about NI and its equivalent in real time, I gave you an example of knowing when to throw the spear, something everybody can conceptualize, everybody can understand, everybody can go, yes, that exists in the world, having good timing on something. What you're talking about is entirely subjective. Nobody knows what you mean when you say you have differentiated sensations in your mind. You're not describing anything that anybody else can reference. You're not describing anything that anybody else necessarily can resonate with or not, because it's not defined enough to do that. That's the difference. That's why my model is so much better. You see, what I'm telling you makes sense and means something specific, and we can all know what that is. What you're saying doesn't mean anything specific and doesn't make sense, and none of us can know what it is. That's the difference. Bill Gates is not an ENTP. Eric of the host, is that me? What is a supervisor MPI? Well, it's a socionics term. It means that you have my dominant function is your tool function, and my polar is your dominant function. So what I'm completely blind at, that's your expertise. What I'm really good at, what my expertise says, you're really good at. So it's like you can hang with me on the NE, and I can't hang with you at all on the FI. And you have 8-slot TI, so it's pretty effective. So in other words, you have too many advantages over me, and I'm going to feel supervised by you. And like, I don't want to get in trouble from you, because I know that your understanding is complete where mine is dark, and not vice versa. Why do you say they're all on the spectrum? Again, you're just making random claims without substantiating them with anything. There's no reason to believe those people are all on the spectrum, quote unquote. Einstein certainly wasn't. And if you think they are, then you're not. I did type you, bro. I told you. I said you were an ENTP. I'm not changing subjects. I've already met my burden. I've typed you. Joel Nathan Henry, you're begging the question. You're presuming things that aren't. You're presuming facts, not an evidence. The angel was pure peace, and the demon took my breath away, and I looked away so quickly it was so disturbing. Oh, that must have been Azrael. He's one of the more disturbing of the demons. Odin fascinated me the most, but my initial introduction was from Final Fantasy. I later got into Viking music and curiously read up on it. I do art. I can copy to a point of realism, but my problem is to create from imagination is harder than I'm very imaginative. Is this functions? I was typed officially as INFJ. Officially by whom? What made it official? I'd have to talk to you. I don't know. It's difficult to say about possible INTP, possible INFJ. You're talking about difficult distinctions that require more attention if I'm not going to be misled. I mean, look, I can jump to conclusions easily enough about people in this chat, and I can jump to conclusions and type police and stuff, and it's mostly just for kicks anyway. But when I actually type somebody in a session for 75 minutes and talk to them face to face, I am making sure that if you get audited, so to speak, I'm going to be the person who shows up and explains to the IRS that no, you really are an ENFP or whatever, and here's why. No, Anata, don't be ridiculous. You got to remember, your dominant nature is my polar, my blind spot. My feelings do not get hurt that easily. I just am aware when there's an INFP around, just like I see Colin, my stepson, ISTP, and he's cautious around me because he's NE polar and TI tool. I mean, TI dom, and I'm NE dom and TI tool, so I got too many advantages over him. Which NT gets laid the most? ENTJ. Well, I see a lot of similarities between 16 types and zodiac archetypes. Is there any correlational studies on that? Well, I'm sure that the thing is, there have been lots of assorted means of categorizing people into various types and stuff since the dawn of time, with the, since the ancient Greeks divided into 4 categories of people and yada, yada, yada. All these categorizations are cueing in on the same reality that people do come in certain configurations, and that those configurations are distinct identities of, or distinct permutations. They're not part of a wash or spectrum. That's the main key distinction that cardinal function theory makes from, say, other understandings of human consciousness, is that humans are distinct configurations of a finite and determinate set of possible configurations, and they are one and not any other of those configurations. And those configurations are distinct from each other, not merely quantitatively, but qualitatively. Let's see. He didn't care for good versus evil. Do you know what they wanted from you? I don't know what they wanted from me. Who wanted? I don't know if you're talking to me or not. I love when Eric gets angry. I do get angry a lot. I don't get angry a lot. I do get manity fairly often. ASD symptoms. Today's data on ASD doesn't work on the past. I don't know what you're talking about. ASD. What's ASD? Autism spectrum disorder? No, there are plenty of autism spectrum disorder diagnoses. There's probably way too many way more than there should be, because there's not an empiric test on it. Because why? It's not a real thing. Like in some regard, most of the people who get diagnosed aren't actually autistic or Asperger's. They're just lower end FE. The actual autistic kids have mental retardation. I've worked with plenty of them. Actual Asperger's are like Forrest Gump kind of. They have a sort of borderline retardation. Those are actual Asperger's and actual autism. People who aren't borderline retarded or actually retarded are neither. And that's it. That's good. I like the baseline thinking viewpoint. It has broad scope. And the first 2 letters of the person you talk to, this would make more clear to whom you were talking to. Annetta, I know why I saw the angel, but I'm not sure why the demon. The only thing I could think was I belong to Jesus and not to the world any longer. Were you dying? Or what? Sheila, I'm curious as the context of this. Eric, what types do you think are polymaths, aka Renaissance men that have so many different areas of specialized talents? I mean, it's going to be your NE DOMs, ENFPs and ENTPs probably. Oh, okay, let me try it. Here you go. Cool, thanks. You're welcome. Annette H, here's a thumb up for you. Yep, that's a thumb up, all right. Autism spectrum disorder. Oh, yeah. DSP equals dissociative shattered personalities. Oh, Walter. Be nice to DSP. You know he's a much respected colleague. Antelope supervision doctor. You have to go to the antelope supervision doctor again, Martin. I told you If you continue to leave your envelopes unsupervised, you're going to have an illness related to that. My mother said I'm retarded, but she never got me tested. Well, your mother sounds like an awful mother. Your mother sounds retarded. Was it an NDE? You don't have to share if you don't want to. Yeah, it was an NDE. That is to say, never doubt Eric, G. It was a never doubt Eric moment. I was doubting Eric, but then he pulled it out at the last second. Never doubt Eric. No, it's probably wise to sometimes doubt Eric. What do you mean? Well, many times I've doubted him, and I've been right to have doubted him. Oh, this is the first time I've interacted. Yeah, he'll fool you for a couple times. Let's see. MBTI helps you a lot when you visit a new country. I'm Khaled Baghdadi. You can trust me. Thanks for sharing that, Khaled, about MBTI. Appreciate it. It was more about prediction, says Angentier. I have ASP. It is like borderline retardation, but with higher intelligence. It's very awkward. Annette, I can tell by how you write you don't have it. That's factually untrue. You might believe it to be true. Somebody might have told you it's true. But having worked for years with people who have actual autism and actual Asperger's, I can tell you just by no, you don't. For you, not me, says Walter Wiseman. Anyone watch Rick and Morty? I've watched the first few seasons, the first couple of seasons, and I stopped watching it when I got to the end of the amount that it was done. And I think they've made more since then, but I've started watching it again. Interesting. So perhaps you think Leonardo da Vinci was an NE? Probably, yeah. That's why I said he was probably an HP on that list of like famous luminaries or whatever. No, it was a week after becoming a born-again Christian when I was 27 years old. Oh. Maybe you had too many wafers the night before. Too much Body of Christ. You got bloated on Body of Christ. That's when the demons come out. What's the strongest function in times of nuclear war? Plutonium. You're a savant, huh? Well, I live in a convent, so same thing. That doesn't make me autistic. I got an idea for Rick and Morty story arc that will span an entire season. I'm going to try to get a job as one of the chief story writers sometime this year. Go for it. Good luck to you. I've got a lot of poo in a bag. I'm going to go door to door and try to sell it. Would you like to buy some? You can have as many poos as you like for $5, up to 3 poos. Okay, so 1, 2, or 3 poos for $5. You choose. Dude, your stream delay is way too big. Check your stream settings. It's like 30 seconds. Well, what are my stream settings supposed to be like? What do you mean? Is there a delay between the audio and the video? Is that what you're saying? Do you believe the children are our future? Is that what you're saying? Do you hate the fruit chews? Is that what you're saying? I can't tell. I don't understand. I have no idea why either, Sheila. Well, it's probably just sometimes it goes, would you ever do a gaming stream? Yeah, I don't really play any games, though, at the moment. I thought about trying to do a video game stream with somebody. I don't want to do the playing of the game. I want to do the talking over it part. I want somebody else to play the game. I don't want to play it myself, though. You see what I'm saying? I want somebody else to play and I'll do the commentary. That's what I want to do. If you know somebody who wants to try that with me, who just wants to play a game and let me make a video of them playing a game and me talking over it, particularly a game where I don't know how you structure a mass debate. Being Meguka is suffering. What does that mean? Yeah, this is Kitty Meow Meow. This is Pee-Pee. She's my Pee-Pee. I'm not too great at games either because I'm in mechanical school there. So why don't I play one where like somebody's got a sword or something? I'm walking around with some other people's swords and shit, so I can make up some nonsense about it. If anybody wants to do that right now, you can go to appear.in/host Eric and start playing a game there of some kind. Share your screen so it shows up on the screen. And I'll come there in a little while. And oh, it's you. There's no delay. Okay. And so you don't have to show yourself or say a goddamn thing. You just go in there and you play some sort of video game that has like people in it. Don't play something like, you know, you move a circle around here or something. Something that has people moving around in it. And I'll give just general commentary about it. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna end this live stream. I have played that role before, and I've been told that before, and I do a pretty good job of Dungeon Master. I don't tell me people because I sound like a whack job. I don't think you're a whack job, Sheila. Cameron and I think you're a wonderful person. See you, Jeffrey. I'm out too. I'm gonna go over to the host Eric room for a second, just in case anybody shows up to play a video game. I didn't have to say hi to me or anything. Just go in there and play your video game and share the screen so I can see what's going on. As long as it's like meet the stipulations I said. And I want to do a video right now of me talking nonsense over it. All right, Skyrim. If you play that, if it's got people in it, play that. See ya.